What if the fierce, unstoppable women of legend weren't just myths, but a reflection of the strength that lies dormant in us all? The Amazons, warriors of ancient times, left behind a legacy that continues to inspire and empower. But what truths about their power and spirit have we yet to uncover? The origins of the Amazons have always been shrouded in mystery, their story woven from threads of myth and legend that stretch back to the earliest days of recorded history. In the quiet spaces between fact and fiction, the Amazons have thrived as symbols of strength, defiance, and independence, qualities that have echoed through cultures for millennia. Ancient Greek myths first introduced them to the world, painting a picture of fearsome warrior women, skilled in battle, who lived beyond the reaches of the known world. But their existence was not limited to the pages of Greek mythology. Across the ancient world, from the steppes of Central Asia to the coasts of Africa, similar tales of female warriors arose, each culture crafting its own version of these powerful women. In Greek mythology, the Amazons were often depicted as an isolated tribe of women who rejected the typical roles assigned to women in their societies. They were fierce, skilled warriors who fought alongside men and sometimes even against them. They were portrayed as living in a matriarchal society where women held all positions of power, ruling over the men who had been relegated to secondary roles. These women, such as Queen Hippolyta and Penthesilea, were more than just rulers. They were legends, warriors whose names would forever be etched into the annals of myth. Their battles with famous Greek heroes like Heracles and Theseus became the stuff of legend, with the Amazons always portrayed as fierce adversaries who never backed down, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, despite the prominence of these stories in Greek culture, the origins of the Amazons remain elusive. Were they simply a product of the Greeks' imagination, or did they represent real groups of women who defied the norms of their time? Some scholars have suggested that the Amazons were inspired by real-world tribes, where women held significant power, like the Scythians, who were known for their warrior queens and female warriors. These women, living on the fringes of the Greek world, could have sparked the imagination of Greek storytellers, who then embellished their stories into the grand myths we know today. But the Amazon myth is not confined to the Greeks alone. Across the world, similar tales emerged. In Africa, the Dahomey Kingdom's all-female military regiment, known as the Amazons, served as an inspiration for later depictions of powerful women in the military. In the steppes of Asia, the Scythian warrior women were revered for their combat skills and their ability to hold their own in a male-dominated world. These warrior cultures, both real and mythological, blurred the lines between the fantastic and the possible, creating a legacy that would inspire generations to come. The Amazons' mysterious beginnings remain a testament to the power of myth and the universal longing for strength, independence, and equality. Though the truth of their origins may forever remain hidden in the mists of time, their legacy as fierce, unstoppable warriors continues to resonate in the hearts of those who fight for justice and equality today. The first Amazon queen, whose name has been lost to time, stands as a figure of unparalleled power and wisdom. Her reign marked the dawn of the Amazonian civilization, a society built on principles that seemed radical to the outside world: strength, unity, and equality. Her leadership was not merely defined by her military prowess, but by a fierce sense of justice and an unyielding belief in the potential of her people. It was under her rule that the Amazons first came to be known as the fiercest warriors, a matriarchal society where women held the reins of power and men were given the opportunity to thrive, though in different capacities. This queen was a woman of unparalleled vision. She understood that true strength came not only from physical prowess, but from the unity of her people. She believed that the Amazonian way of life, where every member contributed equally, could not only survive, but thrive. Her vision was clear: to create a society where strength was not the sole measure of worth, but where equality, respect, and unity guided every decision. Under her leadership, women were not only warriors but also leaders, priests, and strategists. Men, though not warriors, played vital roles as labourers, traders, and advisors, making them essential to the balance of the society. The Queen's rule was marked by the absence of hierarchy in its purest sense. It was a society where roles were defined by strength and skill, not gender. However, her reign was not without its challenges. To the north, the tribes of the steppes, who valued traditional patriarchal values, viewed the rise of the Amazonian queen with contempt. They saw her rule as an affront to their own values and sought to conquer her people. These tribes, known for their cavalry and fierce warriors, underestimated the unity and might of the Amazons. The queen, a strategist as well as a warrior, led her people into battle with unparalleled discipline. She understood the terrain, the weaknesses of her enemies, and how to turn the tide of battle in her favour. Her forces, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity fueled by unity, and they triumphed time and time again. But the Queen's greatest challenge came not from external enemies, but from those within her own tribe who began to question the balance of power. As the Queen's fame spread and her influence grew, the seeds of dissent began to sprout. Some of her closest advisors, men and women alike, began to question the Queen's vision for a society built on equality. They believed that women, being the natural leaders, should take full command, while others argued that men too had a rightful place at the forefront of leadership. The Queen, ever wise, recognized the growing tension but refused to yield. She understood that true strength lay in compromise, not in division. Her leadership became a beacon for her people, not because she was without flaws or struggle, but because she faced those challenges with unshakable resolve. Her reign came to an end not through defeat, but through the passage of time and the natural course of life. Yet, the society she built, one of unity, strength, and equality, persisted, passed down through generations of warrior queens. Her story, though faded by the sands of time, lives on in the very ideals of the Amazonian legacy. The sacred land of the Amazons, though its exact location remains the subject of much debate, is described in ancient myths as a place where nature and civilization exist in perfect harmony. Some legends place it in the far reaches of the east, where dense forests stretch endlessly into the horizon, while others suggest it lies in the harsh, unforgiving north, where the mountains meet the sky and the rivers run cold and swift. The geography of this mythical land was as wild and untamed as the women who called it home. It was a place where the land itself seemed to possess a life of its own, nurturing the strong and demanding respect from all who ventured there. Amazonian society flourished within this rugged yet beautiful terrain. The people lived in close connection with nature, and their homes were built not in the heart of cities, but within the very fabric of the land, hidden deep within thick forests, or perched high upon the hills, where their dwellings blended seamlessly into the environment. Their settlements were modest by external standards, consisting of large wooden structures made from the surrounding trees, designed to be easily defendable while providing shelter for the women warriors, children, and elders. They were a people who valued simplicity, where the abundance of the land was enough to sustain them, and the strength of the community was paramount. The heart of Amazonian culture lay in its warrior traditions. Each woman was raised with the understanding that strength, courage, and skill were virtues to be celebrated. From an early age, girls were trained in the art of combat, learning the ways of the bow, the spear, and hand-to-hand combat. They were taught not only to fight but to think strategically, to outwit their enemies, and to protect their sacred land from any outside forces that would dare challenge them. But strength was not the sole measure of their worth. The Amazonian women also valued wisdom, leadership, and compassion. Elders, respected for their years of experience, served as advisors to the queens, guiding the younger generations in both warfare and governance. Daily life in the Amazonian society was centered around the ideals of unity, equality, and respect for all living things. Women and men had distinct roles, but the importance of each was never in question. While the women fought and governed, the men contributed to the community by tending to the crops, constructing homes, and maintaining trade with nearby tribes. Yet, the greatest emphasis was placed on the survival and education of their children, who were taught the values of their people, from the art of hunting and warfare to the traditions and spiritual practices that defined their culture. Spirituality was a core part of their daily lives, and the Amazons believed their land was sacred, blessed by the gods for their dedication to strength, justice, and the balance of nature. Rituals were performed in open-air sanctuaries, surrounded by towering trees or atop hilltops that provided a clear view of the land below. The connection between the Amazons and their land was more than physical. It was spiritual. They believed their very existence was intertwined with the earth, and in return for their protection and respect for nature, the land would provide for them, ensuring their survival and prosperity. The sacredness of their land was not just a place, but a symbol of their unity and their unbreakable bond with the earth and its forces. The warrior culture of the Amazons was woven into the very fabric of their society. It was a culture that revered strength, strategy, and fearlessness, shaping every aspect of their lives from a young age. The Amazonian women were not born warriors. They became them through years of rigorous training and initiation, each step of which was a rite of passage. From the moment they could walk, they were taught the values of discipline, endurance, and honor. The path to becoming a true Amazon warrior was long and demanding, but the rewards were immense: respect, freedom, and the privilege of defending their sacred land. Training began early, with girls being taught to fight and defend themselves as part of their basic education. But this was not just physical training. It was a mental and spiritual preparation for the life they would lead. They learned the art of survival, honing skills in tracking, hunting, and reading the land. Combat training was just as intense, with girls learning to wield weapons as an extension of their own bodies, mastering the bow and arrow, the spear, and the double-edged axe. These women were not just taught to fight, they were taught to think like warriors, to anticipate their enemies' moves, and to use the environment to their advantage. Stealth, agility, and resourcefulness were just as valued as brute strength. At a certain age, young women underwent a series of trials to earn the right to be called warriors. These rites of passage were as much about the mind and spirit as they were about physical prowess. The most feared and revered of these trials involved a rite known as the Trial of the Hunt. The young initiates would be sent into the heart of the wilderness alone, with nothing but their weapons and their instincts to guide them. The purpose was twofold: to test their survival skills and to demonstrate their ability to face danger without hesitation. It was said that the trial did not end until the initiate had successfully hunted down and brought back a dangerous creature, whether a wild boar, a lion, or a creature more elusive. Only then could they truly be called a warrior of the Amazon. The weapons themselves were crafted with meticulous care. The Amazons were renowned for their skill in forging tools that were both functional and symbolic. Their bows were finely crafted from the strongest wood, strung with sinew and designed for both power and precision. Spears were tipped with razor-sharp iron, each one custom-made for its owner, reflecting both personal style and fighting technique. But it was the double-edged axes that became their most iconic weapon. These axes were not only symbols of strength but tools of destruction. They were wielded with precision and grace, allowing the Amazon warriors to fight in close combat with deadly efficiency. Combat techniques were as unique as the women who employed them. Amazonian warriors fought with a fluidity that made them unpredictable on the battlefield. They did not rely on the heavy, clumsy formations of traditional armies. Instead, They fought as a cohesive unit, moving like a storm across the land, swift and elusive. A single Amazon warrior could stand her ground against multiple opponents, using speed, agility, and calculated strikes to overwhelm them. When the time came to defend their land, the Amazonian warriors stood united, a fierce and unyielding force that no enemy could hope to conquer. In Amazonian society, the line between warrior and goddess was often blurred, and this was most evident in their reverence for Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. Artemis was not just a deity to the Amazons. She was their protector, their model, and their guiding force. She embodied the qualities they valued most: strength, independence, and an unwavering connection to nature. To the Amazon women, Artemis represented the perfect balance of fierce warrior and nurturing mother, a symbol of both their power and their responsibility to protect their land and people. Her influence shaped not only their personal identities but also their societal structure. The Amazons saw themselves as the earthly counterparts to Artemis, each woman embodying aspects of the goddess in her daily life. They believed that their strength and prowess in battle were gifts bestowed upon them by Artemis herself. In this way, the Amazon women were not only warriors, they were goddesses in their own right, elevated by their dedication to Artemis and their unwavering commitment to protecting their sacred land. To the outside world, they were fierce and untouchable, but within their society, they were revered as divine protectors, each one a living manifestation of Artemis's power. Rituals and ceremonies played a vital role in maintaining the connection between the Amazons and their gods. The most sacred of these rites occurred in the heart of their forests, where the women would gather to honor Artemis. These rituals were often held under the light of the full moon, a time when the goddess was believed to be most powerful. The women would dance in circles, their bodies moving as one with the rhythms of nature, paying homage to the goddess who had granted them their strength. At the center of these ceremonies stood the high priestess, a woman chosen for her wisdom, grace, and devotion to Artemis. It was her role to lead the chants and prayers, invoking Artemis's favor and protection over the tribe. The rituals also included symbolic acts of sacrifice, but these were not about destruction, they were acts of renewal. An offering of the hunt was made to Artemis, acknowledging that the land and its creatures were as sacred as the warriors who roamed it. These ceremonies were not only about appeasing the gods, they were a way for the Amazons to reaffirm their unity and their commitment to the protection of their people. The goddess's blessing was sought not just for victory in battle, but for harmony and balance in their daily lives. Every victory, every hunt, every birth, and every death was woven into the fabric of their belief system, where they were seen as living in service to Artemis's will. Through these rites, the Amazon women not only honored the goddess, but also ensured the survival of their way of life. They saw themselves as keepers of the land, warriors in the truest sense, and protectors of a sacred mission passed down through the ages. Their belief in Artemis was not passive, it was active, guiding their actions and their purpose. The Amazons were not just women of war, they were the embodiment of divine strength and guardianship, a testament to the power of belief and the fierce resolve to protect what was sacred. The Amazons, despite their unity as a people and their shared devotion to Artemis, were not immune to the struggles for power that marked any society. Within their warrior culture, where strength and leadership were highly valued, rivalries were inevitable. These power struggles often played out between queens, each vying for dominance over the others, each believing that their vision was the one that would lead the Amazons to greatness. The queens were not just figureheads, they were powerful warriors in their own right, commanding armies and holding sway over the land and people. But leadership among the Amazons was not handed down through bloodlines alone, it was earned through battle and strength. The most well-known stories of rivalry among the Amazon queens revolve around the fierce competition for supremacy. One such tale is that of Antiope and Hippolyta, two queens who, despite their shared bloodline, found themselves in bitter conflict. Antiope, known for her fierceness in battle and her uncompromising desire to expand the Amazonian borders, sought to challenge Hippolyta's rule. Hippolyta, the more strategic of the two, preferred maintaining the status quo, valuing the preservation of Amazonian traditions and land. The struggle between the two queens led to a series of confrontations, each one more intense than the last, until their rivalry escalated to an all-out war. Ultimately, it was Hippolyta's diplomacy that secured her position as the dominant queen. Though Antiope's defiance left a lasting mark on Amazonian history, leadership among the Amazons was never fixed in one individual for long. A queen could rise to power through sheer will and military prowess, but she was always vulnerable to being overthrown by another, stronger, more capable leader. The political structure of Amazonian leadership was fluid, often governed by the strongest among them. Queens were chosen not just for their lineage, but for their ability to lead their people to victory. They were the heart of Amazon society, embodying the strength, honor, and strategic mind that the Amazons held sacred. Yet the rivalry was not always destructive. In some instances, competing queens would find ways to coexist, forming temporary alliances, or setting aside their differences for the sake of the greater good. These alliances were crucial in times of external threat, when the unity of the Amazons became paramount. But even in times of peace, the tension between rival queens never fully dissipated. The threat of a challenge to a reigning queen's authority always loomed, forcing each ruler to maintain a strong and visible presence on the battlefield and in the council. The queen's power was built upon the foundation of their warrior status and their ability to inspire their people. It was a delicate balance between political savvy and martial strength. Rivalries, while common, never threatened the core unity of the Amazons. Instead, they shaped the dynamic leadership that ensured the survival and strength of the society. In Amazonian culture, power was something to be constantly won and defended, and only the strongest, most capable women could claim the throne. The art of war was the backbone of Amazonian society, shaping every aspect of their existence. From a young age, Amazonian women were trained in the ways of combat, learning the skills that would turn them into some of the most feared warriors in the ancient world. Their approach to warfare was not simply about brute strength, but about using their intelligence, agility, and the environment to their advantage. The Amazons understood that to conquer was not just to overpower an enemy, but to outmaneuver and outthink them at every turn. One of the most defining aspects of Amazonian military tactics was their deep connection to the land. Their intimate knowledge of the environment, whether it was the dense forests, steep hills, or vast plains, allowed them to use nature as a weapon. They would often lure their enemies into the dense forests, where the terrain favored their guerrilla tactics. Ambushes were a favorite tactic, with Amazonian warriors waiting in the shadows, using the cover of trees and foliage to hide their movements. When the enemy came too close, they would strike swiftly, disappearing into the landscape as quickly as they had appeared. This fluid, elusive style of combat made the Amazons nearly impossible to predict, and their enemies struggled to keep up. The Amazons were also masters of mounted warfare, riding horses with unparalleled skill. They used their steeds not just for speed, but for precision in battle. The sight of a line of Amazonian women riding into battle, armed with bows and spears, was enough to send shivers down the spine of even the most battle-hardened soldiers. Their ability to fight on horseback, while remaining nimble and quick, allowed them to strike at the heart of enemy lines and retreat before a counterattack could be mounted. Some of the most legendary battles in Amazonian history were fought against overwhelming odds, yet the Amazons always managed to come out victorious. One such battle was the clash between the Amazons and the invading Scythians. The Scythians, known for their brutal horse-riding tactics, seemed like an unstoppable force, but the Amazons used their knowledge of the terrain and their superior archery skills to break their momentum. They lured the Scythians deep into the wilderness, where their large numbers were no longer an advantage. The Amazons, quick and agile, ambushed them at every turn, picking them off one by one. It was a bloody and brutal fight, but in the end, the Amazons emerged victorious, proving that strategy could win battles where raw strength might falter. Another legendary battle took place against the mighty Persian Empire. The Persians, with their vast armies and well-equipped forces, believed that they could easily crush the Amazons. But the Amazons had something the Persians did not, an unbreakable bond with their land and each other. They fought with an intensity and unity that overwhelmed the Persians' superior numbers. Despite being outmatched, the Amazons used their superior tactics, swift attacks, and intimate knowledge of the terrain to inflict heavy casualties on the invaders, forcing them to retreat. The Amazons' military prowess was a testament to their culture, where strength, strategy, and unity were paramount. Their battles were not just about defeating enemies, they were about demonstrating the might and resilience of their society, one that valued intelligence in warfare as much as physical strength. They knew that victory often lay not in direct confrontation, but in the ability to turn the very land itself into a weapon. The bonds of sisterhood among the Amazons were not simply built on shared experiences. They were woven through the very fabric of their lives, with each woman playing a vital role in the collective strength of the tribe. The Amazons did not merely fight alongside one another, they fought for one another, a sentiment that ran deeper than loyalty. The bond that united them was founded on trust, respect, and a shared understanding of the world they had chosen to shape. Their relationships were forged in the crucible of battle, where the stakes were life and death, and every warrior relied on her sister in arms. Each Amazon understood that the bond between them went beyond the battlefield. It was in the way they trained, shared their victories, and comforted one another through their losses. When a woman raised her sword in battle, it was not just for her own glory, but for the protection of the entire sisterhood. This sense of duty to each other created an unbreakable connection. The Amazons were never isolated in their struggles. They were part of a greater whole, each one reinforcing the strength of the other. The respect among the women was earned through acts of courage and integrity, and it was these qualities that truly cemented their relationships. Every Amazon knew the weight of the responsibility that came with her role, and through shared combat and training, they learned to rely on each other's strengths. Each warrior brought her unique abilities to the fold, whether it was skill in archery, agility in hand-to-hand combat, or the intelligence to outwit an enemy. These differences were not a source of division, but rather a foundation for a deeper unity. A great Amazon queen or leader was one who saw the value in all of her warriors, ensuring that each one's talents were recognized and honored. Loyalty was a concept that transcended simple obedience or duty among the Amazons. It was a profound, unwavering devotion to the collective welfare of the sisterhood. An Amazon's word was her bond, and once a warrior swore loyalty to the tribe, it was a lifelong commitment. Even in the face of death, betrayal was unheard of. The trust that each woman had in her sisters was absolute, and this deep sense of loyalty was what allowed the Amazons to stand united through countless battles. When one sister fell in combat, the grief was not just for the loss of a warrior, but for the loss of a part of the sisterhood itself. Unity was not just an abstract concept for the Amazons, it was a practical necessity. Their very survival depended on their ability to work together, to form an unyielding collective will that could withstand external threats and internal pressures. The strength of the Amazonian society came not from the individual might of its warriors, but from the unbreakable ties that bound them together. It was the realization that they were stronger as a united front, that each woman's success and survival depended on the survival and success of her sisters. The Amazons knew that they were not just a tribe of warriors. They were a family, a sisterhood, forged in the fires of war and bound by an unshakable loyalty that endured through time. For the Amazons, love was not a simple pursuit of romantic idealism. It was intertwined with their sense of duty to their sisterhood, and any relationship formed was balanced precariously between personal desire and the responsibility each woman had to her tribe. While they were fierce warriors who gave themselves entirely to the protection and defense of their people, the allure of love and connection with others still held a powerful place in their hearts. Yet, love among the Amazons was not merely about finding companionship or passion. It was, in many ways, an act of selflessness, a bond that was always seen through the lens of the greater good. The tension between the desire for romance and the loyalty to the sisterhood was always present. To be an Amazon meant to devote oneself fully to the tribe's survival and strength. Romance, in its most traditional sense, seemed at odds with that singular focus. Love was a distraction, a softening of the warrior spirit that the tribe valued so dearly. Still, even the most disciplined of Amazons could not completely suppress the human desire for connection, and at times, love blossomed quietly between two warriors. But these relationships were not without their challenges. The demands of Amazonian life often required that love be sacrificed for the sake of the tribe. A woman might find herself torn between the intimacy of a partnership and the overwhelming sense of responsibility to her sisters. Romantic relationships within Amazonian society were complicated further by their strong communal bonds. The concept of individual ownership over love or affection was foreign to them. Love, when it emerged, was always framed by the tribe's unyielding principles of equality and mutual respect. The idea of one woman claiming another as her own was an alien concept to the Amazons. Instead, relationships were seen as fleeting moments that could not override the greater unity of the sisterhood. Many Amazons chose to remain unmarried or avoid romantic entanglements altogether, knowing that their first duty was to the tribe. The Amazonian codes, established over centuries, provided strict guidelines about personal conduct, especially concerning relationships. Sexuality, love, and romantic attachments were not seen as forbidden, but rather as something that needed to be approached with caution and purpose. The codes dictated that any relationship should not compromise the warrior's ability to fight or the loyalty to the sisterhood. A warrior's heart might belong to a lover, but her body and mind belonged to the tribe. This unspoken rule allowed for the possibility of affection, but required that it never undermine the greater mission of the Amazons. Love, like all other emotions, was secondary to the preservation of the tribe and the perpetuation of its values. This delicate balance between love and duty shaped the Amazons in unique ways. It created a paradox where they could experience deep emotional connections, while never allowing those feelings to take precedence over their role as protectors. Love and duty were not separate entities in Amazonian life. They were one and the same, tied together in an unbreakable bond that defined their existence. Hunting was more than just a means of sustenance for the Amazons. It was an act of empowerment and a profound demonstration of their skill, independence, and connection to the land. In their society, the hunt was a crucial part of life, a tradition that held great significance both practically and symbolically. The Amazons, often depicted as fierce warriors, were equally adept as huntresses. To hunt was to prove one's strength, resilience, and ability to survive in the wild. It was also a way to provide for their people, showing that women were not merely protectors in battle, but also nurturers, sustaining their tribe through their prowess in nature. For the Amazons, hunting was a communal activity, a rite of passage, and a source of pride. Women hunted, not only to gather food, but to demonstrate their bond with the natural world and with each other. The hunt was an opportunity for them to come together, to sharpen their skills, and to uphold their societal values. Young women were trained from an early age to hunt, learning the ways of the forest, the rhythms of the animals, and the precision of the bow. Every hunt was a reflection of their unity, as the entire tribe worked together toward a common goal, their success tied to the collective effort and the strength of each individual. Legendary hunts often became the stuff of myth, told and retold through generations. The women who excelled in these hunts were held in reverence, their feats inspiring awe and respect. One of the most famous hunts in Amazonian lore was the story of the hunt for the wild boar that threatened their land. In this tale, a group of Amazonian warriors, led by their queen, tracked the creature through treacherous terrain, overcoming obstacles and outwitting the beast with unmatched skill. The hunt was not just about victory over an animal. It symbolized the conquering of adversity, the ability to endure, and the unyielding spirit of the Amazonian women. The symbolism of the hunt was far-reaching. It represented the balance between strength and nurture, independence and community. The Amazon women hunted to prove their ability to conquer the wild and defend their people. Yet it was also an act that connected them to the earth, grounding them in their ancestral traditions. Each hunt carried deeper meaning, a manifestation of their connection to the divine, to nature, and to one another. In many ways, the hunt was a metaphor for their role in the world, fearless, determined, and ever ready to face the unknown in defense of their sisterhood and their way of life. In the Amazonian culture, the hunt was as much a spiritual practice as it was a physical one. The women saw themselves as the stewards of the land, bound by a sacred duty to protect it. The animals they hunted were not simply prey. They were part of the cycle of life and death, reminders of the delicate balance between creation and destruction. By mastering the hunt, the Amazons affirmed their place in the world warriors, providers, and guardians of the natural order. The myths surrounding the Amazons have been passed down through the ages, captivating the imagination of countless generations. But the question remains, were the Amazons real, or are they mere fabrications of ancient storytellers? The legends portray them as fierce, independent women, warriors who ruled with strength and honor, living in a society where men were often subjugated. Their stories are entwined with the gods themselves, especially Artemis, their protector, and their allegiance to the divine powers that shaped their fierce warrior culture. These tales, however, raise a complex question. How much of the Amazonian myth was grounded in truth? Historians and archaeologists have long debated the existence of the Amazons. Some believe that the stories stemmed from real encounters with women who lived outside the norms of traditional societies. Their independence and martial prowess exaggerated by the male-dominated cultures around them. Archaeological evidence of female warriors, such as burial sites where women were interred with weapons, suggests that women in some ancient cultures did take on roles that we might today associate with male warriors. However, the mythical, the larger-than-life qualities attributed to the Amazons, such as their abilities to fight as equals with men, or even better, are likely the product of centuries of embellishment. When comparing the Amazonian myths with those in other cultures, it becomes clear that the archetype of the warrior woman is not unique to the ancient Greeks. The Scythian women of the Eurasian steppes, for example, were known to have fought in battle alongside men, and their own myths about warrior queens and powerful women are strikingly similar to Amazonian legends. In African and Native American cultures, too, there are stories of women who wielded weapons and led their people in battle. The difference lies in the way these societies integrated such figures. While some accepted women in combat roles, others elevated them to mythic status. These comparisons underscore a key aspect of the Amazonian legend, the blending of historical truth with mythology. As stories of real women who fought in battle began to be told and retold, the power of storytelling transformed these women into superhuman figures, their deeds magnified to heroic proportions. Over time, the line between historical fact and mythical fantasy blurred. The Amazons became more than just a historical reality. They became symbols of female empowerment, resistance, and strength. Their stories transcended the boundaries of mere history, evolving into a powerful mythic narrative that resonated across centuries. In essence, the Amazons lived not only in the pages of ancient texts, but also in the collective memory of societies that yearned for stories of female power and agency. Whether they were real or simply mythological figures, the Amazons represent something timeless, the idea that women, too, could rise to be warriors, leaders, and legends in their own right. And in that sense, the truth of their existence lies not in the dusty pages of history, but in the stories we continue to tell, generation after generation. The Trojan War, one of the most famous conflicts in Greek mythology, was marked by the involvement of many legendary figures. Among them was Penthesilea, the fierce and tragic queen of the Amazons. Her name has been woven into the fabric of the Trojan saga, not just as a warrior, but as a symbol of both strength and sorrow. Penthesilea's arrival at Troy was not simply a quest for glory, but a deep sense of duty and vengeance. As she led her Amazonian warriors to aid the Trojans against the invading Greek forces, her story begins with a dramatic series of events that led to her becoming one of the most celebrated figures of the war. According to myth, Penthesilea was compelled to join the battle after the death of her sister, Antiope, at the hands of the Greeks. Seeking to honor her sister's memory and prove the worth of her people, Penthesilea gathered her warriors and sailed to Troy. As the leader of the Amazons, she was a figure of unparalleled combat prowess, her bravery matched only by her fierce determination. The Trojans, recognizing her strength, welcomed her as an ally in their desperate struggle to defend their city. However, the true heartbreak of Penthesilea's story lies in her tragic encounter with Achilles, the greatest of the Greek warriors. In the heat of battle, the two met on the field, and what followed was a clash between two of the most formidable fighters ever to have existed. Penthesilea, clad in her armor and armed with her spear, fought valiantly, matching Achilles in both skill and ferocity. But the fates, as they so often do in the world of Greek mythology, were not in her favor. Achilles, who was initially struck by admiration for her strength and beauty, eventually struck her down in battle. But it is in the aftermath of Penthesilea's death that her story takes its most tragic turn. As he removed her helmet to gaze upon her face, Achilles is said to have been overwhelmed with remorse. For in that moment, he saw not just an enemy, but a woman who had fought with honor and courage, just as he had. His admiration for her transcended the violence of battle, and he was struck with a deep sense of regret for having taken her life. The tragic fate of Penthesilea, slain by the very hero she had respected, serves as a poignant reminder of the blurred lines between heroism and tragedy in the ancient world. The Queen of the Amazons, a warrior of unmatched courage, became yet another victim of a war that spared no one, regardless of their might. Her death at the hands of Achilles became one of the many heart-wrenching moments in the Trojan War, a tale that echoed with loss, heroism, and the tragic consequences of a conflict that consumed all who were caught in its wake. The connection between the Amazons of Greek mythology and the warrior women of the steppes of Central Asia and Eastern Europe is both fascinating and complex. As myth and history intertwine, it is often hard to separate the two, but the traces of powerful female warriors throughout these regions suggest that the legends of the Amazons may have had roots in real historical figures. Scythian and Sarmatian women, who lived in the vast expanses of what is now Ukraine, southern Russia, and parts of Central Asia, were some of the most formidable warriors of the ancient world. These women were not merely participants in their society, they were leaders, fighters, and often seen as equals to men in both their ability and their role in battle. In ancient Greek myths, the Amazons were depicted as fierce, independent women who lived outside the bounds of traditional society, often portrayed as a threat to the established order. These women were said to live in a matriarchal society where men had little to no authority, and they were trained from a young age to be warriors. While the Greek myths were filled with fantastical elements, they may have been inspired by real women who inhabited the vast steppe regions, where warrior cultures flourished and where women actively participated in combat. Archaeological evidence from ancient Scythian graves shows that women, in fact, did fight alongside men and were often buried with their weapons. The Scythian women were skilled in horseback riding and archery, much like their male counterparts, and some even held positions of power. In these societies, women were not relegated to the roles of wives or mothers alone, but were integral parts of the warrior elite. This can be seen in the graves of noble women, which contained not only jewelry and clothing, but also the arms and armour that signified their warrior status. These women were known to ride horses into battle, wielding swords, daggers, and bows with deadly precision. The similarities between the Greek Amazon myths and the historical women of the steppes are striking. Both the myths and the historical accounts describe women who defied the norms of their respective societies, rising to positions of power and influence, and both cultures place significant emphasis on women's roles in combat and warfare. However, the differences are also clear. The Greek Amazons were often depicted as a distinct, isolated group, their society entirely separate from that of men. In contrast, the Scythian and Sarmatian women were integrated into their societies and played active roles within them. They fought not as outsiders but as integral members of their communities. In the end, the connection between the Amazons and the women of the steppes remains a mix of myth and history, each influencing the other. The legends of the Amazons may have been inspired by these real warrior women, whose lives of strength and bravery became immortalized in myth. These women, who lived in a world of harsh landscapes and constant conflict, left a legacy that continues to captivate the imagination, blending the boundaries between legend and history, and reminding us of the powerful women who once roamed the vast steppes. As the centuries passed, the once mighty Amazons, with their fierce independence and warrior spirit, found their territories threatened by the rise of expanding empires. The Greek and Roman expansions brought both military might and cultural assimilation to regions once dominated by these women. The decline of the Amazons was not sudden, but rather a slow, inexorable erosion of their power and way of life, as larger, more organized forces swept across the lands they had once ruled. The first significant blow came with the Greek conquest. As the Greek city-states began to extend their influence over the eastern Mediterranean, their armies clashed with the scattered, nomadic Amazonian tribes. While the Greeks admired the bravery of the Amazon warriors, they also sought to conquer and subdue them, as they did with all neighboring peoples. Stories of Amazons in Greek mythology began to shift as the real-world Amazons were pushed into smaller and smaller territories, forced to fend off invaders who sought to control the valuable trade routes and fertile lands of the East. The Romans, with their insatiable hunger for empire, were even more devastating to the Amazonian world. They brought with them not only their military prowess, but also the infrastructure and governance systems that would forever change the landscape. As the Roman Empire expanded eastward, it absorbed many of the territories once associated with the Amazons. The Amazons' fierce independence clashed with the Roman need for order and centralization, and slowly, their kingdoms crumbled. The Romans saw little use for warrior women, especially in a world where the patriarchal social structure had become dominant. The old ways of life were increasingly replaced with Roman law, Roman cities, and Roman soldiers. Roman legions marched across the lands of the Amazons, toppling their strongholds and taking their lands into the fold of the empire. As the Amazonian way of life began to dissolve under the pressure of Greek and Roman expansion, the old tribal structures faded. The warrior culture that had once been at the heart of Amazonian society was supplanted by the military institutions of foreign empires. The Amazons, once so feared for their prowess in battle, became mythologized remnants of a past era. Their territories were swallowed by larger, more powerful civilizations, and their way of life, founded on strength, independence, and the bond of sisterhood, was lost to history. Yet, the legacy of the Amazons didn't vanish entirely. Their stories endured in Greek and Roman literature, becoming woven into the fabric of myth and legend. They were no longer the living, breathing warriors of old, but figures whose courage and independence inspired poets and philosophers. The fall of the Amazons marked the end of an era, but their memory lived on, haunting the pages of history as a reminder of the fierce women who once shaped the world in their image. In the wake of the Amazonian decline, many of the once powerful warrior women chose to leave their ancestral homelands, their territories falling under the control of foreign empires. These exiled Amazons did not simply fade away into obscurity. Instead, they dispersed across the known world, carrying with them the remnants of their fierce traditions, their combat skills, and the stories of their warrior culture. As they scattered into various corners of the ancient world, the legacy of the Amazons found new life in foreign lands. Exile did not mean surrender for the Amazons. Their warrior spirit, honed through generations of conflict and survival, adapted to new environments. These women became wanderers, mercenaries, and warriors for hire, seeking refuge in lands where their skills would be respected, or where they could carve out new identities as protectors. Some joined foreign armies, their expertise in battle making them invaluable allies in wars of expansion and defense. In these foreign societies, the Amazons maintained their warrior ethos, but they were no longer fighting for a lost homeland. Instead, they fought for survival and often for power in their new homes. Over time, the Amazon diaspora became woven into the fabric of many different cultures. The Amazons, who had once been isolated on the fringes of the known world, now found themselves embedded in the great cities and armies of the Mediterranean and beyond. In Egypt, some Amazons blended into the warrior traditions of the Nile, while in the distant corners of the Eastern empires, they adapted to the militaristic societies of Persia and the steppes. Though the Amazons were now part of these foreign worlds, they brought with them the same strength, unity, and independence that had defined their people. Yet even in exile, they remained distinct. The traditions of the Amazons evolved as they integrated into new societies, but their warrior spirit was never fully extinguished. They began to blend their own practices with those of their new homes, taking on new weapons, new strategies, and sometimes even new beliefs. However, at their core, they remained the same fierce women who had once ruled the plains and forests of their ancestral land. In some places, they became legendary figures, woven into the tapestry of myth and folklore as strong, independent women who defied the conventional roles of their time. Though their lands were lost, the exiled Amazons carried the essence of their society with them, and in doing so, ensured that the warrior spirit of their people lived on. They may have been scattered, but they were never truly forgotten. Their presence in foreign lands ensured that the legacy of the Amazons, with all its might, pride, and resilience, and would continue to shape the world long after their traditional homelands had faded from memory. The legacy of the Amazons has endured through the ages, transcending their ancient roots and evolving into symbols of strength, independence, and defiance. Though the Amazons themselves may have faded into the annals of history, their spirit continues to resonate in the modern world. Today, the image of the Amazonian warrior woman, with her fierce determination and unyielding courage, persists in literature, art, and popular culture, forever etching the concept of a powerful, self-sufficient woman into the collective consciousness. In literature, the Amazonian archetype has evolved, but remains rooted in its origins. From the heroic women in epic tales of the ancient world, such as Penthesilea in the Iliad, to modern-day heroines in fantasy novels and comic books, the idea of the fierce warrior woman has captivated audiences for centuries. Characters like Wonder Woman, the most iconic modern incarnation of the Amazonian spirit, have become household names, inspiring generations with their blend of compassion, strength, and justice. These characters often embody the qualities the Amazons are remembered for: bravery in battle, independence, and the refusal to adhere to society's traditional expectations of femininity. The Amazonian influence can be seen in countless other fictional portrayals of female warriors, from the realms of science fiction to historical epics, ensuring that their legacy remains as relevant as ever. Beyond fiction, the legacy of the Amazons has had a profound impact on modern feminist movements. The symbol of the warrior woman, fighting not only for survival but for her right to exist on her own terms, aligns closely with the values of self-empowerment and equality that have defined much of contemporary feminism. The Amazons' rejection of the patriarchal structures that sought to limit their potential resonates deeply in the struggle for gender equality today. They were pioneers of their own autonomy, refusing to be bound by societal expectations, and their story has become an enduring metaphor for women who fight for their right to make their own choices and define their own destinies. The Amazonian legacy is also evident in the growing representation of women in leadership roles, both in the political sphere and in the boardrooms of modern corporations. As women continue to rise to positions of power and influence, the Amazon archetype serves as a reminder of the importance of resilience and self-reliance. The Amazons, with their commitment to equality, strength, and independence, are the spiritual ancestors of today's trailblazing women, those who defy the odds and push against the limits placed on them by society. Ultimately, the legacy of the Amazons lives on not just in stories, but in the very way that women continue to break boundaries, challenge expectations, and define their own identities. From warriors in fiction to activists in the real world, the spirit of the Amazons remains a beacon of strength and empowerment. Their tale may have started in ancient myth, but it continues to inspire women across the globe, reminding them that power is not defined by the world around them, but by the fire within. The portrayal of the Amazons in ancient art is as varied as the cultures that encountered them, each interpreting the warrior women through their own lens. In Greek art, Amazons were often depicted as fierce and majestic figures, their beauty and strength captured in sculptures and vase paintings. These representations show them in the heat of battle, wielding spears or drawing bows, often fighting against Greek heroes or mythical creatures. Their bodies were typically portrayed as muscular yet graceful, embodying both femininity and strength, reflecting a deep-seated admiration for their prowess in battle. The famous Amazonomachy, scenes of battle between Greeks and Amazons, became a central motif in Greek art, portraying the Amazons as both adversaries and symbols of the untamable, independent spirit. However, the way the Amazons were depicted was not always one of admiration. In some cultures, they were seen as threats to the patriarchal order, and this view coloured their representation. In ancient Persian art, for instance, the Amazons were sometimes portrayed as enemies to be defeated, their strength symbolising the chaos that could arise from women stepping outside their traditional roles. These interpretations were rooted in the cultural values of the time, reflecting anxiety about the disruptive power of women who challenged male-dominated societal structures. In contrast, other cultures saw the Amazons in a more neutral or even positive light, recognizing them as powerful, autonomous figures. The Scythians, a nomadic people from the Eurasian steppes, were often associated with the Amazonian myth due to their warrior women. Artifacts from these regions, including elaborate jewelry and detailed tombs, often depict women armed for battle, reinforcing the idea that women warriors were not confined to Greek mythology, but were a part of the historical record in various societies. The image of the Amazon thus evolved, intertwined with the identity of these cultures, seen as both protectors and conquerors of their lands. In modern art, the Amazon myth has been reimagined to reflect contemporary ideals of female empowerment. Artists have taken the figure of the Amazon and reinterpreted it to fit modern themes of independence, strength, and resilience. These modern portrayals often emphasize the emotional and psychological depth of the Amazonian women, highlighting their internal battles as well as their external ones. In painting, sculpture, and digital art, the Amazon is no longer simply a warrior fighting on the battlefield. She is a symbol of defiance against oppression, a figure who embodies both the strength to fight and the wisdom to lead. In contemporary pop culture, the Amazonian archetype has evolved beyond traditional representations, influenced by feminist ideals and the desire to portray women not only as warriors, but as leaders, mentors, and protectors. The modern Amazon is often depicted as a multifaceted individual who balances power with compassion, someone who does not need to be masculine to be powerful, but who redefines strength on her own terms. As art continues to evolve, so too does the portrayal of the Amazons. The myth of the Amazon woman, once a symbol of wild, untamed power, has grown into an enduring icon of the female spirit, capturing the complex interplay of power, identity, and resistance. The Amazons of Africa, particularly the Dahomey Amazons, stand as a testament to the enduring legacy of powerful, independent women warriors. The Dahomey Kingdom, located in present-day Benin, was home to one of the most renowned all-female military regiments in history. These women, often called the Agojie, were fierce, skilled fighters who defended their kingdom with unparalleled loyalty and ferocity. Their training was rigorous, and their reputation for bravery spread far beyond the borders of Africa, captivating the imagination of many, both in the ancient world and beyond. Their presence in history mirrors the myths of Greek Amazons, with striking parallels in their roles as fierce warriors, protectors of their people, and symbols of strength. The similarities between the mythical Greek Amazons and the real-world African warrior women are remarkable. Both groups are remembered for rejecting the conventional roles of women in their societies and embracing the warrior ethos. Like their Greek counterparts, the Dahomey Amazons were celebrated for their skill in battle, their tactical ingenuity, and their unwavering commitment to their communities. They fought alongside men and were sometimes even seen as superior fighters, revered for their combat prowess and their ability to lead men into battle. The warrior spirit of the Amazons, both real and mythological, symbolizes the power women have had throughout history, often hidden or erased by conventional narratives. The legacy of African Amazons extends far beyond their military might. Their role in shaping African history is immeasurable. As protectors of the Dahomey Kingdom, they played a pivotal role in defending their land from European colonization and other foreign invaders. Their discipline, strength, and unity allowed the Dahomey to maintain a semblance of independence during the height of the transatlantic slave trade, which threatened to erase entire cultures from existence. The Dahomey Amazons became an integral part of the kingdom's identity, and their legacy is still honored today in the history and folklore of West Africa. Their story is a powerful reminder of how the intersection of myth and history can shape perceptions of women's roles in society. The Dahomey Amazons, like their Greek counterparts, transcend the boundaries between fiction and reality. They prove that the warrior woman archetype was not merely a product of ancient myth, but was a reality for many cultures across the globe. Their courage, resilience, and strength are a living legacy that continues to inspire women around the world today. In many ways, the African Amazons helped to rewrite the story of women in history, shifting the narrative from passive figures to active agents of power and influence. The Amazonian archetype has long been a powerful symbol of femininity and strength, blending qualities traditionally considered masculine with the complexity and nuance of womanhood. Representing women who reject societal expectations to embrace combat, independence, and leadership. The Amazons embody the idea that strength does not negate femininity, but rather enhances it. These women, often depicted as fierce warriors, challenge conventional narratives that place women in passive or nurturing roles, offering an image of femininity that is dynamic, active, and powerful. In doing so, the Amazon myth has become a lens through which we explore the evolving definition of womanhood and female empowerment. Psychologically, the figure of the Amazon speaks to a deep-seated cultural need to reconcile power with vulnerability, action with emotional depth. Amazons are not merely warriors, they represent women who balance these roles with wisdom, leadership, and care for their communities. These women, though skilled in battle and leadership, also exist within rich, complex societies that value unity, loyalty, and the bonds of sisterhood. Their strength is not one of dominance or destruction, but rather one that integrates both physical and emotional resilience. The psychological allure of the Amazon stems from their ability to blend power with compassion, creating a more holistic model of feminine strength. In this way, the Amazonian myth defies simplistic representations of gender, illustrating the multifaceted nature of womanhood. Culturally, the image of the Amazon taps into the universal desire to break free from restrictive roles imposed by patriarchal societies. Historically, women have often been confined to private spheres, tasked with managing households and nurturing life. The Amazonian figure, however, offers an alternative, a woman who is not confined but is an active participant in the world, wielding weapons, leading armies, and shaping the fate of nations. The Amazon represents a radical departure from the traditional female role, embracing freedom, action, and the right to carve out one's own path. This cultural symbol resonates deeply, especially in times when women are seeking to reclaim their autonomy and challenge outdated gender norms. In modern interpretations, the Amazon is a figure of resistance against not just physical foes, but societal constraints that limit the expression of female potential. The empowerment of women through the Amazon myth is both a reflection of the past and a beacon for the future. The archetype of the Amazon offers women a role model that transcends the dichotomy of beauty versus strength, advocating instead for a version of womanhood where power and grace can coexist. It provides a space for women to exist as their full selves, strong, independent, and unafraid to wield their power in a world that often underestimates their capacity. Through the lens of the Amazon, women can embrace their complexity without fear of contradiction. The myth of the Amazon has, therefore, not only empowered generations of women, but has helped to redefine femininity itself, shifting the narrative to include both strength and softness, leadership and empathy, courage and vulnerability. Across various cultures, the archetype of the female warrior has transcended geographical boundaries, embodying ideals of strength, independence, and battle prowess. While the Greek myths of the Amazons are perhaps the most well-known, the concept of women warriors appears in many other ancient societies, each offering its own interpretation of female strength. In Celtic, Norse, and other cultures, women were not only active participants in warfare, but also held roles of leadership and power, challenging traditional gender norms and showcasing the diverse ways in which societies viewed and valued women warriors. In the Celtic world, warrior women were often depicted as fierce and skilled fighters, sometimes even leading troops into battle. The legendary queen Boudica of the Iceni tribe is one such figure who has captured the imagination of many. Known for her unyielding resistance against Roman occupation in Britain, Boudica embodied the qualities of the Amazon warrior: strength, courage, and the willingness to fight for her people's freedom. She led her army into battle against the Romans with ferocity, and her legacy as a symbol of resistance and female strength has persisted through the centuries. Celtic myths and historical accounts also suggest the presence of warrior women who were integral to the fight, not mere figures on the sidelines. but true equals in battle. Similarly, Norse mythology offers another rich tradition of female warriors, particularly in the figure of the Valkyries. These supernatural women, who served the god Odin, were depicted as warrior maidens who chose the bravest of fallen soldiers to take to Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. The Valkyries were not only divine messengers, but also fierce, skilled fighters in their own right, representing the ideal of women who wielded both divine power and martial prowess. These figures were often portrayed as strong, independent, and capable of fighting alongside men, blurring the lines between femininity and the warrior ethos. In Norse culture, women like Lagertha, the shield maiden, were said to fight in battle and defend their lands just as fiercely as any man, further solidifying the concept of women as warriors in Norse society. These cultures, though distinct in their traditions and beliefs, shared a profound respect for the strength and independence of women, particularly those who fought for their people or for their beliefs. In each case, women were not seen as anomalies in battle, but as integral members of their societies who could challenge the status quo, whether as leaders, warriors, or protectors. These women displayed a resilience that resonated with their culture's values of honor, courage, and justice. How these cultures viewed female warriors speaks to a broader societal recognition of women's capabilities beyond domestic or reproductive roles. In Celtic and Norse societies, women had agency, fought in battles, and were revered for their strength and leadership. Their stories endure not only because of their martial skills, but because they embodied ideals of independence and bravery that continue to inspire. These warrior women, much like the Amazons, show that the concept of female strength is not confined to one culture or time period, but rather a universal theme that resonates across civilizations, each offering its own vision of the female warrior. The warrior queens of the Amazons were not only formidable in battle, but also exemplified a unique code of conduct that blended strength, wisdom, and justice. Their leadership was not simply about wielding power through force, but about maintaining harmony, discipline, and loyalty within their society. Amazonian queens adhered to a set of principles that governed every aspect of their lives, from their relationships with their people to their roles in battle. These codes ensured that they ruled with both authority and respect, commanding the loyalty of their warriors and the fear of their enemies. At the heart of an Amazon queen's rule was a deeply ingrained sense of duty. Their primary responsibility was to protect their people, defend their territory, and uphold the values of their society. To achieve this, they took vows of personal sacrifice, swearing never to let their personal desires overshadow their responsibilities as leaders. These oaths were not just symbolic, they were binding promises that ensured their leadership was rooted in honor. An Amazon queen could not afford to act impulsively or for selfish reasons. Every decision, whether in battle or governance, was made with the good of the tribe in mind, ensuring that their actions were aligned with the greater good of their people. The rituals surrounding an Amazonian queen's ascension to power were as rigorous as they were sacred. Upon taking the throne, a queen would often undergo rites of passage that tested her endurance, both physically and mentally. These rituals were not only ceremonial, they were practical exercises designed to affirm her capabilities as a warrior and leader. The queen's rise to power was a public declaration of her commitment to both the tribe and the ideals of strength, unity, and justice that the Amazons cherished. These ceremonies were vital to reinforcing her authority, signaling to the people that she was more than just a figurehead. She was a living embodiment of the Amazonian values. In addition to the personal vows taken by the queens, the Amazonian culture also placed significant importance on collective responsibility. Loyalty and unity were paramount within their ranks. Amazon warriors, both under the command of the queen and outside her direct influence, adhered to an unspoken but universally understood code. to fight not for personal glory, but for the collective survival and prosperity of the tribe. This fierce bond of mutual respect and trust was reinforced by a shared belief in the cause, and it made the Amazonian women formidable both on the battlefield and in governance. The lessons of Amazonian governance are manifold. Their leadership was not driven by authoritarian power or fear, but by a collective sense of duty, sacrifice, and shared responsibility. These principles fostered an egalitarian society where strength and unity were valued over personal ambition. The idea that true power is rooted in the well-being of the collective rather than the desires of the individual is a concept that transcends time and culture, offering valuable insights into the nature of leadership and governance. In their code, the Amazonian queens left behind a legacy of strength, discipline, and wisdom that continues to resonate today. Themyscira, the legendary stronghold of the Amazons, stood as a testament to the power and cultural depth of its people. Nestled along the banks of the Thermodon River, its location was not merely a geographical choice, but a calculated strategic advantage. The city, revered for its formidable defences, was shielded by natural barriers, a blend of steep cliffs and dense forests that made it nearly impenetrable to invaders. The Amazons, ever vigilant, utilised the river as both a waterway for trade and a barrier against unwanted forces. From its impregnable walls to its expertly managed fortifications, Themyscira embodied the strength and resilience of its inhabitants. But beyond its military prowess, Themyscira was a vibrant centre of Amazonian life, steeped in cultural richness and religious reverence. The city was adorned with statues, temples, and altars dedicated to their gods, the most prominent being Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, wild animals, and childbirth. Worship of Artemis was not simply a ritual, it was an integral part of the Amazonian way of life. Themyscira's central temple, dedicated to Artemis, was a towering structure that housed the sacred fire and served as the focal point of religious ceremonies. These ceremonies, which included hunts, sacrifices, and dances, were a daily occurrence in the life of an Amazon warrior. The city was a sacred space where every activity, from the youngest child's first lesson in the ways of the warrior to the most seasoned combatant's return from battle, was framed by the divine. Culturally, Themyscira was a hub of Amazonian traditions. Women of all ages gathered in communal spaces where the teachings of combat, leadership, and survival were passed down through generations. The city's infrastructure reflected this, with wide open areas for training and practice, as well as specialized halls where stories of legendary Amazonian queens and warriors were told and retold. These stories were vital, reinforcing the city's identity and the core values of the Amazons' strength, honor, and unity. Children were raised in an environment where the concept of leadership was nurtured from an early age. Every citizen, from the youngest to the oldest, understood their role in maintaining the strength of Themyscira. Daily life in Themyscira was marked by a balance of war and peace. Women trained in the arts of combat, swordplay, archery, and hand-to-hand combat, yet they also played key roles in maintaining the prosperity of their city. The Amazons cultivated the land, raised livestock, and ensured that their stronghold was self-sufficient, with every member of society contributing to the greater whole. There was no division between warrior and worker. Each woman was both a protector and a provider, a symbol of strength in every sense. Themyscira was not merely a city, it was a living representation of Amazonian ideals. It was a place where the sacred and the martial coexisted, where the daily struggles of life were met with resilience, and where the power of the Amazonian spirit burned as fiercely as the fires of Artemis. The city may have been legendary, but it was the women of Themyscira who turned its myths into reality, ensuring that the legacy of the Amazons would echo through the ages. The Amazonian arsenal was as much a symbol of power and tradition as it was a practical necessity for their way of life. Each weapon, each piece of armor, was carefully forged and crafted, not only to serve in battle, but to embody the very essence of Amazonian identity. The Amazons were known for their mastery over a variety of weapons, each chosen not just for its effectiveness, but also for its resonance with the warrior's spirit. The most iconic among these were the bow and arrow, the spear, and the sword, each playing a critical role in the Amazonian warrior's skill set. The bow and arrow, often seen as the Amazonian weapon of choice, reflected the connection between the women and the natural world. As expert hunters, the Amazons were taught to wield their bows with precision and deadly efficiency. The bows were typically crafted from the finest wood, often treated and shaped by hand, with each string stretched to perfection. The arrows, tipped with sharp metal points, were designed for both distance and power. The craft of bow making was revered, with skilled artisans creating bows that were not only functional but also works of art, adorned with intricate carvings and symbols that represented the Amazons' bond with Artemis and the wild. The spear was another weapon integral to the Amazonian arsenal. A long, lethal tool designed for both thrusting and throwing, it represented the strength and reach of the Amazonian warrior. The shaft was often made of sturdy wood, carved and polished, while the iron or bronze tip was honed to a razor's edge. The spear was as much a tool of offense as it was a symbol of Amazonian defense, their reach extending far beyond the confines of their stronghold, prepared to strike at any threat. Like the bow, the spear was often personalized, with each warrior choosing markings or symbols that represented her personal triumphs, victories, or divine favor. The sword, too, held a prominent place in Amazonian culture. While the spear allowed for distance, the sword brought the battle up close and personal. Whether curved like a scimitar or straight like a classic Greek xiphos, the sword was a mark of a seasoned warrior. The Amazons crafted their swords with unmatched skill, paying careful attention to balance, weight, and cutting edge. The grip of the sword was often wrapped in leather, designed for a warrior's hands, ensuring that each swing, each thrust, could be executed with deadly accuracy. It was said that the sword was the weapon of the true Amazonian leader, worn with pride and symbolizing the close connection between the queen and her people. Craftsmanship in Amazonian society was not limited to the making of weapons alone. It extended to their armor and shields as well. Armor was crafted to offer both protection and mobility, made from materials such as leather and bronze, designed to withstand the impact of battle while allowing the warrior to move freely. The shields, often circular, were painted with bold designs, often featuring the emblem of Artemis or the wearer's personal insignia. These shields were not just functional, they represented the unity of the Amazons, a reflection of their collective strength and identity. Each piece of Amazonian weaponry was a work of both function and art, embodying the fierce spirit of its owner. More than just tools of war, they were expressions of their warrior society, tools of survival, pride, and empowerment. They were crafted not only for battle but to be carried into legend, representing the unyielding strength, devotion, and sacred duty that defined the Amazons. In the hands of each warrior, the weapons were not just instruments of destruction, they were extensions of the women themselves, embodying their courage, their strength, and their unwavering will. The history of the Amazons is rich with powerful, enigmatic leaders whose legacies have become woven into the fabric of myth and legend. Among the most renowned of these figures are Hippolyta, Penthesilea, and Antiope, each of whom led their people with unparalleled strength, wisdom, and resolve, their stories forever etched in both history and the collective memory of the ancient world. Hippolyta, perhaps the most famous Amazonian queen, is often remembered as a figure of great beauty and even greater strength. As the queen of the Amazons, She commanded respect, not just for her prowess in battle, but for her leadership. Hippolyta's reign was marked by the unity she brought to her people, holding the various Amazon tribes together in a time of turbulence. One of the most well-known stories involving Hippolyta is her encounter with Heracles during his 12 labors. It is said that Heracles sought the magical girdle of Hippolyta, a token of her power, and though initially she was willing to give it to him peacefully, a misunderstanding led to a fierce battle. In the end, Hippolyta's fate was sealed by this interaction with Heracles, but her legend endured, symbolizing the strength and grace of Amazonian leadership. Penthesilea, another legendary Amazonian queen, was a fierce warrior and a tragic figure. Known for her valor during the Trojan War, she is often remembered for her unwavering courage and tragic end. Penthesilea led her Amazon warriors into the heart of battle on behalf of Troy, where she fought valiantly against the Greek forces. Her story, however, is one of sorrow, as it culminates in a tragic duel with Achilles. In a moment of great heroism, Penthesilea faced Achilles in single combat, and though she fought with unmatched skill, she was struck down by the Greek hero. However, her death was not in vain. Her bravery in battle and her tragic end inspired future generations, cementing her place as one of the most formidable Amazonian leaders. Antiope, the sister of Hippolyta, also stands out as one of the Amazonian queens whose leadership was forged in both strength and personal sacrifice. In her story, Antiope is often remembered for her role in the conflict with the Greek hero Theseus. Initially, Antiope was taken captive by Theseus, leading to her eventual defection to Athens. However, she would later return to her people, fighting alongside them in a desperate bid to protect her homeland from the encroachment of Greek forces. Like her sister, Antiope's fate was tragic, but her courage in battle and the depth of her devotion to her people earned her a place among the most iconic of Amazonian leaders. These powerful queens represent the indomitable spirit of the Amazons, leaders who were not only warriors, but also symbols of the strength, resilience, and courage that defined their people. Their stories, shaped by both myth and history, transcend time, continuing to inspire and captivate those who hear of their deeds. Whether they met with victory or defeat, their impact on the world of the ancient Greeks and beyond remains undeniable, embodying the enduring power of female leadership. Romance within the Amazonian community was a complex and often contentious subject, shaped by the unique social and cultural structures of the Amazons. The Amazonian women were warriors first, bound by their commitment to their sisterhood and the survival of their people. Love, in the traditional sense, was seen as a powerful yet disruptive force, capable of weakening the bonds that held their society together. As such, relationships with men were rare, heavily regulated, and often filled with tension. Amazons, by the very nature of their society, were independent and fiercely protective of their autonomy. They lived by a code that placed their warrior duties above personal desires, making romantic relationships with men both rare and controversial. The most notable of these relationships were often born out of conflict, most famously the love affair between Hippolyta and Heracles, which was filled with both passion and tragedy. While Heracles sought the magical girdle of Hippolyta, their interaction sparked a complicated romance that bridged the gap between the Amazonian world and the Greek. However, such relationships were always secondary to the core principles of Amazon life. Men were seen more as external forces, often representing the very cultures the Amazons fought against. In Amazon society, relationships with men were governed by strict rules. Love was considered a necessary but often dangerous distraction. The Amazonian warriors did not marry or bear children in the traditional sense. Their focus was on their military prowess and the defense of their land. For the Amazons, love that involved emotional attachment was seen as something that could undermine their unity. The idea was that romance with men could dilute the strength of the sisterhood, potentially causing division among their ranks. This did not mean that the Amazons were incapable of love, but rather that their relationships were often handled with caution and pragmatism, their loyalty to their people above all else. Despite these constraints, love still found its way into the hearts of many Amazons. Their romantic relationships were often brief, driven by passion in the heat of battle or as part of a strategic alliance. The most famous love story, that of Penthesilea and Achilles, stands out as an example of the tension between duty and love. Their relationship, born in the chaos of war, ended tragically with Penthesilea's death at the hands of Achilles. Yet even in death, their romance symbolized the power and inevitable conflict of love in a warrior society, two powerful forces colliding. Love, in the context of the Amazons, was always a balance between personal desires and the greater good. While the Amazonian community was built on strength, unity, and battle, romance was seen as a reminder of the complexities of the human spirit. It was a force that, when wielded properly, could empower, but when mismanaged, threatened the very fabric of Amazonian life. In the end, love was both a reflection of the Amazons' humanity and a challenge to their unyielding warrior ethos. Prophecy and omens held significant weight in the lives of the Amazons, guiding their actions and decisions with an almost divine authority. In a society built on strength, unity, and the warrior spirit, the power of prophecy provided a spiritual and philosophical dimension to their existence. It was not merely the outcome of battle that mattered to the Amazons, but also the deeper understanding of their place in the world and the fate that awaited them. Prophecies were believed to offer glimpses into the future, not as fixed destinies, but as possible paths that could be shaped by the will and strength of the Amazonian women themselves. For the Amazons, prophecy was an intrinsic part of their belief system, woven into the fabric of their culture. Many of their decisions, particularly those made by the queens and leaders, were influenced by visions or warnings passed down through sacred rituals or divine encounters. In this warrior society, where life and death hung on the outcome of battle, the guidance of the gods, often expressed through prophecy, provided a form of divine legitimacy to their actions. The words of oracles and seers were interpreted as sacred truth, often informing strategies or even dictating the course of their wars. Perhaps the most famous example of prophecy influencing Amazonian decisions was the tragic story of Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons. Before heading into the Trojan War, she had received a prophecy that foretold her death at the hands of a great hero. Though the prophecy warned of her demise, she chose to face it with the courage of a true warrior. Her fate was sealed as the prophecy predicted when she was killed by Achilles in a fateful encounter. The prophecies that guided the Amazons did not always promise victory or survival, but rather reminded them that even in death, their legacy would be shaped by their valor. The role of omens in their daily lives was no less important. The appearance of unusual animals, the shifting of the winds, or signs in the sky could all be seen as omens, signaling that the gods were intervening in their lives. These signs were not simply warnings, but guides to the Amazons on how they should conduct themselves. Every Amazonian warrior had a role to play in fulfilling the prophecy, whether in battle or in their dedication to the preservation of their culture and people. Even the most mundane moments could hold deeper meaning when viewed through the lens of prophecy. Ultimately, the Amazons understood their society as one intricately connected to the fate of the world, and prophecy provided a sense of continuity in an ever-changing universe. Their warriors and queens were not simply fighting for dominance or survival, they were fulfilling a greater purpose. Prophecy offered them a way to align their actions with something greater than themselves, a divine order in which each decision had cosmic significance. This belief in destiny, shaped by prophecy and omen, was not a resignation to fate, but a powerful call to act with purpose, knowing that the Amazonian warriors held the power to shape their future. The relationship between the Roman Empire and the Amazons is a complex tale, blending myth with historical reality. The Romans, known for their military prowess and expansive conquests, were not immune to the allure of the Amazonian warrior culture. Though the Romans had their own storied traditions of military excellence, the legends of the Amazons, brave, independent women warriors, captured the Roman imagination. The Roman relationship with the Amazons evolved over time, from stories of fierce encounters on the battlefield to the eventual integration of some aspects of Amazonian culture into Roman society. During the early years of the Roman Empire, the Amazons were primarily seen through the lens of myth. They were exotic figures, foreign to Roman sensibilities, yet their stories were intertwined with the empire's military conquests and expanding borders. The Romans often depicted Amazons in art and literature, portraying them as fierce adversaries or allies, whose strength and combat skills were not to be underestimated. These depictions sometimes blurred the line between myth and reality, creating a cultural fascination with the idea of women who fought alongside men in battle. As the Roman Empire continued its expansion, the reality of Amazonian warriors began to intersect with Roman history. In regions near the empire's eastern borders, such as in Thrace and Asia Minor, real-world female warriors came to be associated with the Amazonian legend. Some historians believe that the Amazons, as mythic figures, may have been inspired by these real women, nomadic warrior women, who fought in battles, often alongside their male counterparts. As the empire advanced into these territories, they encountered these formidable women in combat. Roman soldiers came to understand that their Amazonian adversaries were not just mythic beings, but powerful, capable fighters who could hold their own on the battlefield. The Romans, known for their ability to assimilate and adapt, eventually incorporated Amazonian women into their own military ranks. Rather than completely vanquishing or subjugating these warrior women, the Roman Empire absorbed them into their own military structures. Some Amazonian women may have been recruited into the Roman legions, while others may have joined as mercenaries or allies, adding a new layer to the empire's military strength. The warriors, once fiercely independent, became part of a greater imperial system, where their identity as Amazons merged with the discipline and order of Roman military life. However, with this integration came a gradual shift away from traditional Amazonian customs. The once deeply rooted traditions of female warriors, where women led, fought, and governed with autonomy, began to fade as Roman societal norms took hold. The Amazonian women, though still regarded for their strength, found themselves bound by the rules and hierarchy of Roman military and political systems. Their warrior culture, once independent and untamed, was slowly eroded as the might of the Roman Empire, with its strict discipline and focus on unity, began to suppress the more egalitarian and autonomous aspects of Amazonian society. In time, the legacy of the Amazons in Roman culture became less about powerful women leading armies and more about romanticized myths and heroic tales. The tide had shifted, and the Amazonian traditions that once thrived in the wild and untamed territories of the East gradually faded. Their once vibrant warrior culture absorbed into the grand narrative of Rome's empire. In modern media, the Amazonian archetype has undergone a remarkable evolution, shifting from ancient myth to a central figure in contemporary storytelling. The Amazons, once legendary warriors who inhabited the far reaches of myth and history, have now become symbols of empowerment, strength, and resilience. Their portrayal in comic books, movies, and television shows reflects the changing views on gender, power, and independence, while also maintaining the core characteristics that made them so captivating in ancient times. In the early days of comic books, the Amazonian figure was primarily represented by Wonder Woman, a character who has come to embody the mythos of the Amazons in popular culture. Created by William Moulton Marston in 1941, Wonder Woman's debut was more than just the introduction of a new superhero. It was the arrival of a feminist icon. As the Amazonian princess of Themyscira, Wonder Woman represented the ideals of strength, wisdom, and justice, while also challenging societal norms. She was a warrior, a diplomat, and a protector, all rolled into one, and her portrayal resonated with audiences seeking a new kind of female hero. Through Wonder Woman, the Amazon archetype was brought into modern media, reshaping the narrative of female strength. Wonder Woman's success in comics paved the way for the continued presence of Amazons in modern media. Over time, the Amazonian concept expanded, with other fictional depictions of female warriors drawing inspiration from ancient myths. Movies like Wonder Woman 2017 and its sequel Wonder Woman 1984 further cemented the Amazonian legacy in mainstream culture, introducing viewers to the hidden island of Themyscira and its warrior women. These films not only paid homage to the classical imagery of strong, formidable women warriors, but also gave these characters a depth of emotion and purpose, showcasing their vulnerabilities and struggles alongside their physical prowess. This modern retelling offered a nuanced view of the Amazonian culture, one that balanced both idealized heroism and the reality of the responsibilities they carried. The impact of the Amazons in television has also been significant. In shows like Xena, Warrior Princess, and Game of Thrones, we see characters influenced by the Amazonian mythos, fierce, independent women who rise to power in a world dominated by men. These characters, though not always explicitly labelled as Amazons, share the same qualities. They are warriors who command respect, embody courage, and challenge the traditional roles assigned to women. Through these portrayals, modern media has given voice to stories of women leading armies, defying tyranny, and forging their own destinies. Echoing the spirit of the ancient Amazons, the portrayal of the Amazons in modern media reflects an evolving understanding of gender, strength, and identity. Once seen as mythic and distant, the Amazons have been transformed into symbols of female empowerment, demonstrating that their legacy is far from being confined to the past. In this new era, the Amazonian archetype continues to inspire, reminding us that the power of these legendary women is as relevant today as it ever was. Through Wonder Woman and countless other depictions, the Amazon is no longer just a figure from ancient myth. She is an enduring symbol of courage, resilience, and the fight for justice. The Dahomey Amazons were a formidable all-female military force, one of the most powerful and revered fighting units in history, hailing from the Kingdom of Dahomey, in present-day Benin, West Africa. These women warriors, who served as an elite division within the Royal Army, became legends for their bravery, discipline, and unwavering loyalty to their king. Their rise to power and prominence began in the 17th century and continued well into the 19th century, until the kingdom fell to French colonial forces in 1894. Yet, even after their downfall, the legacy of the Dahomey Amazons endured in the stories passed down through generations. The women of the Dahomey army were trained from an early age, conditioned not only for physical combat, but also for their role in defending their kingdom. These warriors underwent rigorous training in martial arts, using weapons such as knives, machetes, and spears, and became skilled in close-quarter combat. Their training focused on instilling strength, resilience, and endurance, both mentally and physically. The Dahomey Amazons were known for their ability to move quickly and decisively on the battlefield, and their fearsome presence was enough to strike terror into their enemies. The structure of the Dahomey Amazons was built on an organized hierarchy, with each warrior group serving under a specific commander and the force itself ultimately answering to the king. The military unit was not only composed of young, capable warriors, but also older women who, despite not actively engaging in battle, served as leaders and strategists. The Amazons were highly respected within their society, where they were seen as both protectors and symbols of feminine strength. Their courage in the face of war made them an inseparable part of the kingdom's military might and its cultural identity. The Dahomey Amazons fought in numerous battles to defend their kingdom against external invaders, including the Yoruba and the Oyo Empire, as well as during internal conflicts. Their most infamous engagement, however, came when they fought the French colonial forces in the late 19th century. Despite their valiant efforts and unyielding courage, the French ultimately succeeded in conquering Dahomey, leading to the disbandment of the Amazonian army. Many warriors were captured or killed, but some managed to escape and continued to fight in various other regions. While the colonization of Dahomey marked the end of the Amazons' military dominance, their legacy was far from erased. The Dahomey Amazon story is a testament to the resilience of African cultures in the face of colonial oppression. Though their kingdom was defeated and their army dismantled, their stories live on, celebrated by many in West Africa and beyond. The Dahomey Amazons represent not only an inspiring chapter in military history, but also a powerful symbol of female empowerment, courage, and the fight for cultural preservation. Their courage and strength continue to serve as an inspiration for women around the world, as their legacy endures in both African folklore and global history. The religious and spiritual practices of the Amazons were intricately woven into the fabric of their warrior society, guiding their actions, beliefs, and leadership. At the heart of Amazonian spirituality was a deep reverence for nature, deities, and the spirits of their ancestors. The Amazons believed that their connection to the natural world was sacred, and that the land itself imbued them with strength and resilience. The forests, rivers, and mountains surrounding their homelands were not only physical spaces but spiritual sanctuaries where divine forces communicated with them. The most prominent deity in the Amazonian pantheon was Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, wild animals, and childbirth. Artemis symbolized the balance between life and death, creation and destruction, and was the epitome of the warrior woman ideal. She was both protector and avenger, a fierce and independent goddess who reflected the values the Amazons held dear. In their devotion to Artemis, Amazonian women held sacred rites in her honor, performing rituals that celebrated her strength and invoked her guidance in times of war and peace. These rituals were often centered around the cycles of nature, planting, harvesting, hunting, and served as a means of ensuring that the Amazons remained in harmony with the world around them. They believed that the deities demanded respect for nature's balance, and their battles were fought with the belief that they were warriors chosen by the gods to protect their land. During these ceremonies, Amazonian leaders often invoked Artemis, seeking her blessings and guidance in their leadership roles. It was through these sacred rites that they gained the clarity and divine backing necessary to lead their people with wisdom and justice. In addition to Artemis, the Amazons also honored a host of ancestor spirits, believing that their forebears played an active role in guiding the living. Ancestors were revered not only as protectors, but as active participants in the fate of the tribe. Rituals to honor the dead were carried out in solemn ceremonies, where warriors would give offerings of food, weapons, and tokens of respect. It was said that by honoring the spirits of their ancestors, the Amazons ensured their strength and unity as a tribe. For the Amazons, spiritual practice and leadership were inextricably linked. The queens, revered as the highest authorities in Amazonian society, were believed to possess divine favor. Their leadership was not just a political or military role, it was also a spiritual one. The rituals they performed and the decisions they made were seen as direct guidance from the gods. As protectors of their people, Amazonian leaders were responsible for maintaining the balance between war and peace, life and death, human and divine. Their spiritual practices influenced their governance, ensuring that their leadership remained strong and their society united under the watchful eyes of the gods. Through these rituals, the Amazons cultivated a deep sense of purpose and identity, grounded in the belief that their strength came not only from their physical prowess, but from their sacred connection to the divine forces that shaped their world. Their spiritual practices were a testament to their resilience, creating a society where faith and leadership intertwined to ensure the survival and flourishing of the Amazonian way of life. The legendary battles between the Amazons and the Greek heroes are some of the most iconic stories in ancient mythology, painting a vivid picture of the cultural clash between two very different societies. The Amazons, fierce and independent warrior women, represented a direct challenge to the Greek ideals of male-dominated heroism and civilization. Their encounters with figures like Heracles, Theseus, and others were not merely physical battles, but symbolic confrontations that highlighted the stark differences in gender roles, power, and society between the two groups. One of the most famous tales is the story of Heracles and the belt of Hippolyta, the Amazonian queen. As one of his 12 labors, Heracles was tasked with obtaining the magical girdle, or belt, that belonged to Hippolyta. This seemingly simple mission quickly escalated into a fierce conflict when the Amazonian queen, initially welcoming the hero, became embroiled in a misunderstanding that led to a violent struggle. This battle, like many others between the Greeks and Amazons, was not just about the physical confrontation. It was about the challenge to Greek male supremacy. The Amazons' very existence, their autonomy, and their strength in battle represented a rejection of the traditional Greek view of women as subservient to men. Similarly, Theseus, another great Greek hero, is said to have fought the Amazons during their invasion of Athens. According to myth, the Amazons, seeking to expand their territory, came to Athens and fought the Greek warriors in a dramatic display of martial prowess. Theseus defeated the Amazons and took their queen, Antiope, as his wife. Though this union was far from peaceful, it symbolized the Greek belief in male dominance over women, even those as powerful as the Amazonian queens. The subsequent events, in which Antiope allegedly died at the hands of her own people, only further illustrated the cultural and ideological rift between the Greeks and the Amazons. The cultural conflicts between the two societies were not just about territory or power, but about deeply ingrained ideas regarding gender, roles. The Greeks, rooted in a patriarchal system, saw the Amazons as a threat to their conception of order. Women, in Greek thought, were meant to stay within the domestic sphere, while men were the protectors and providers. The Amazons turned this order on its head, leading their own armies, ruling as queens, and embracing their role as warriors. For the Greeks, these women were not just enemies, they were an affront to the very structure of their world. In contrast, the Amazons viewed the Greeks as weak, bound by societal norms that restrained their potential. To them, strength was not defined by gender, but by the ability to fight, to lead, and to protect their people. The Amazonian way of life, based on independence, strength, and equality among women, stood in stark opposition to the Greek view of men as the sole bearers of power. The battles between the Amazons and Greek heroes were, in many ways, a reflection of these opposing worldviews. They were not just physical fights, but ideological battles that carried profound implications about gender, power, and society. The Amazons, with their fierce defiance of Greek ideals, left behind a legacy that challenged the status quo and pushed the boundaries of what women could achieve in a world that was, for the most part, determined to define their roles. The Persian Empire, one of the largest and most powerful empires in history, was no stranger to the legend of the Amazons. While the Greek myths placed the Amazons at odds with the heroes of their time, the Persian perspective on these fierce women was more complex. The empire, spanning vast territories from the Indus Valley to Egypt, had a diverse range of cultures, many of which were aware of the Amazonian myth. These legendary women, warriors with a fearsome reputation, often found their way into Persian art, literature, and history as symbols of strength, independence, and and power. Persian depictions of Amazon women were often shaped by the empire's own vast and multicultural nature. The Persians, though not directly connected to the Greek mythology of the Amazons, were aware of their existence and the symbolic role they played in the Greek imagination. Persian art and literature, including the intricate carvings on the walls of Persepolis, sometimes depicted warrior women, though these images were less about direct representation of Amazons and more about embodying ideals of strength and honor. In Persian culture, the concept of the warrior woman resonated with the empire's own royal ideals, especially as it pertained to figures such as the warrior queens or royal women who ruled with power and command. The Persian royal family, for instance, would sometimes feature women who held considerable authority, and their depictions often drew parallels with the mythic, the warrior-like women of legend. The legendary Amazonian women may not have been directly involved in Persian military conquests, but they influenced the way Persian society viewed strong, independent women. For instance, the influence of Amazonian law may have contributed to the reverence for certain women in Persian history who exhibited unusual power and authority. There are accounts, such as that of Atossa, the daughter of Cyrus the Great and wife of Darius I, who ruled with a level of influence rare for women of her time. Persian historical records reflect the central role women played in maintaining the integrity of royal bloodlines, even if they did not actively engage in warfare in the same way the Amazons did in myth. Interestingly, the presence of Amazonian imagery in Persian culture might also have been influenced by the empire's exposure to Greek culture through their encounters during the Greco-Persian Wars. These historical confrontations, particularly the Persian defeats at Marathon and Salamis, were filled with myth and rhetoric about heroic warriors and their opposites, the fearsome Amazonian women. In some ways, the Persians might have adopted these stories into their own cultural lexicon, using them as symbols of strength and defiance, qualities that resonated with their own ideals of honor and leadership. While the Amazons never directly impacted Persian military history in the way they did Greek, the myth of the Amazon warrior woman lived on in the shadows of Persian culture. They served as symbols of both admiration and caution, powerful figures whose influence stretched beyond their own myths and shaped the ways in which the Persian Empire viewed women in leadership and strength. The Amazonian legend, though Greek in origin, found a place within Persian storytelling, reminding all of the capacity for women to transcend traditional roles and command armies in their own right. In Chinese mythology and history, female warriors have long held a significant place, though their stories often intertwine with notions of loyalty, sacrifice, and wisdom, much like their Western counterparts in Amazonian legends. These women, whether real or mythical, have been revered for their courage, strength, and strategic prowess, qualities that mirror the Amazonian archetype in Eastern cultures. The tales of these fierce women reflect a complex and multifaceted view of femininity, one where women are not merely caregivers or passive figures, but warriors in their own right, defending their people and fighting for honor. One of the most famous figures in Chinese warrior lore is the legendary Hua Mulan, a woman who disguised herself as a man to take her father's place in the army. Her tale, immortalized in ballads and more recently in films, speaks to the themes of filial piety, loyalty, and courage values that were central to Chinese society. Mulan's character embodies both the physical strength and the inner resolve often associated with the Amazonian warrior women. While the Amazons of Greek myth were often depicted as fierce, independent women living outside the bounds of traditional society, Mulan's strength was framed within the context of familial duty and societal obligation. Yet, her skill in battle and the respect she earned for her prowess was undeniably similar to the warriors of Greek myth. Including the Amazons, other female warriors in Chinese mythology and history also reflect Amazonian ideals. In the ancient stories of the Warring States period, women such as the legendary Lady Shi, who fought alongside her husband, were depicted as strong and capable fighters. These women often had roles in battle that allowed them to prove their worth, not just as wives or mothers, but as powerful warriors. Much like the Amazons, these figures were symbols of empowerment, proving that women could hold their own in a society dominated by men and war. The stories of these Chinese warrior women were shaped by the same ideals of strength, autonomy, and honor that defined the Amazonian mythos. While the Amazons might have been celebrated for their ability to live independently of men and form their own societies, Chinese warrior women often had to navigate the complexities of duty and loyalty to family, society, and the emperor. Yet, at the heart of both cultures was the image of a woman capable of wielding power, whether in the form of a weapon or in leadership, without losing her inherent strength or femininity. The influence of Amazonian ideals on Chinese warrior women can be traced through the shared themes of martial skill, respect earned through battle, and the blending of the traditionally masculine role of warrior with femininity. While the cultural contexts may have been different, the portrayal of these women across both Eastern and Western cultures serves to emphasize that the strength and independence embodied by the Amazons found resonance in many parts of the world. The spirit of the Amazonian warrior, a woman who could fight just as fiercely as any man, lived on in the hearts of Chinese myth and history, inspiring generations of women to fight for what they believed in and to carve their own place in the world. In Norse mythology, the concept of the shield maiden, fearless female warriors who fought alongside men in battle, bears striking resemblance to the Amazonian myth. These women, often depicted as strong, skilled in combat, and devoted to their gods, mirror the legendary figures of the Amazons in Greek stories, who were equally revered for their strength, independence, and martial prowess. While the Amazonian women were often portrayed as living apart from men in their own societies, the Norse shield maidens, although warriors in their own right, were often integrated into the broader context of Viking society and its warrior culture. Norse myths and sagas speak of shield maidens who fought in wars, protecting their lands, families, and beliefs. These women were not just symbols of physical strength, they also embodied the values of loyalty, bravery, and honor, traits that aligned them with the fiercest warriors of any time. The tales of Lagertha, a famous shield maiden from the Viking sagas, show a woman capable of leading troops into battle, an equivalent to the strong and capable Amazonian queens like Hippolyta and Penthesilea. Lagertha, like many of the Amazons, proved herself as a warrior worthy of respect, known for her leadership, courage, and combat skills. In Viking society, the role of women was multifaceted, and while they were primarily tasked with managing the home and family, some also took to the battlefield when needed. The shield maiden was not a figure that existed only in myth. Historical evidence, though sparse, suggests that women did indeed fight in battles, especially in defense of their communities. These women were warriors, much like the Amazons, trained in the use of weapons such as swords, shields, and spears. They were known to fight in the same battles as their male counterparts, their strength and bravery earning them a place in Norse lore. The image of the shield maiden, with her warrior spirit and unflinching courage, contributed to the lasting impact of the Amazonian myth in Norse culture. While Viking warriors may have been known for their battles and exploration, the shield maidens represented something more profound: the recognition of a woman's ability to stand alongside a man in war without compromising her femininity or strength. This image of the warrior woman transcended the boundaries of myth, becoming an emblem of power and respect, not only for the Vikings but for cultures around the world. Norse myths and sagas continue to influence the image of women in warfare, offering a vision of strength and agency that had far-reaching effects. The shield maidens were, in essence, an echo of the Amazonian warriors, proving that the archetype of the female warrior existed not just in Greek mythology, but in a multitude of cultures. Their legacy has persisted throughout history, leaving an indelible mark on the image of women as warriors strong, fearless, and empowered to shape their own destinies. Amazonian art and symbolism reflect the deeply ingrained power and identity of these warrior women, whose presence in ancient culture transcended simple representation. Central to their artistic portrayal were symbols of strength, independence, and mastery over both the natural and martial worlds. The most recognizable of these symbols was the bow and arrow, a powerful tool not only for hunting and warfare but also as an emblem of the Amazonian way of life. The bow, a weapon of precision and grace, spoke to their ability to navigate both the physical and spiritual landscapes, hunting their prey with unmatched skill, while symbolizing their role as protectors and warriors of their people. In ancient Greek pottery, sculpture, and painted vases, the Amazons were often depicted wielding these weapons, which made them appear both fierce and regal. The image of a woman drawing a bow conveyed more than just combat prowess. It communicated an identity tied to freedom, autonomy, and an unyielding connection to their own land. As the bow and arrow came to represent the warrior spirit of the Amazons, it also signified their refusal to be confined by the traditional roles set for women in other societies. Rather than just fulfilling domestic duties, the Amazons fought for their beliefs, carving out a place in the world where they could rule and protect. The depictions of Amazons in art often carried layers of symbolism beyond their physicality. They were portrayed as both beautiful and formidable, their weapons and attire representing a duality of strength and femininity. The ancient Greeks, who were the primary creators of these images, used these portrayals to explore themes of power and the boundaries of gender. Amazons were seen as figures who challenged the status quo, living in a way that stood in stark contrast to the expectations of the Greek world, where men ruled and women were largely confined to the home. In addition to the bow, other symbols commonly associated with the Amazons included the shield, the spear, and the horses they rode. These were not just practical tools of war, but also vehicles of their identity, representing their dynamic relationship with the natural world, their skills in battle, and their mastery over both. The Amazonian warrior was not a mere fighter, but a figure of profound symbolism, one who was deeply intertwined with the mythological and religious fabric of her society. The inclusion of such symbols in art, whether in the form of statuettes, murals, or pottery, reinforced the narrative of these women as powerful, independent, and unafraid to break with tradition. The influence of Amazonian symbolism carried far beyond the ancient world. In subsequent artistic movements, especially during the Renaissance and later in modern times, the Amazon became an icon of female strength and liberation. Artists continue to use Amazonian imagery to convey themes of female empowerment, with the bow and arrow remaining a powerful visual metaphor for women's agency and autonomy. The art that once captured the mythological Amazonian spirit now continues to resonate in a world that increasingly seeks to embrace the strength, independence, and complexity of women. The legacy of the Amazons continues to echo in the hearts of modern feminist movements, where their mythological power, independence, and resistance against patriarchal norms are celebrated as symbols of empowerment. The Amazonian women, warriors in both myth and history, have transcended their ancient roots, becoming icons of strength and autonomy. Their stories, rich with battles fought and societies founded on principles of equality and self-determination, serve as inspiration for contemporary feminist ideologies that advocate for gender equality and women's rights. The Amazon myth provides a framework for understanding the possibilities of female power in a world where women are often marginalized or confined to traditional roles. Through their depictions in art, literature, and myth, the Amazons embody the essence of resistance against societal structures that seek to limit or control women. These warrior women fought not only on the battlefield but also against the constraints of the world around them, carving out spaces where women were not bound by the conventional expectations placed on them. The image of the Amazon, fierce and free, has become an enduring symbol of breaking boundaries and defying norms, qualities that resonate deeply within modern feminist discourse. The portrayal of women as equals to men, capable of leadership and war, challenges the historical and contemporary relegation of women to secondary roles. The power of the Amazon myth lies not only in their physical strength, but in the belief that women, by their very nature, are fully capable of shaping their destinies. The Amazonian legacy nurtures the feminist ideal that women do not need permission to be powerful, assertive, or authoritative. They are entitled to define their own paths, just as the Amazons did in their mythical world. The way these women lived outside the confines of societal expectations and flourished in their warrior societies serves as a powerful testament to the potential of women when given the autonomy to thrive. In the modern era, the Amazon has also become a symbol of resistance. The fight for gender equality continues, and the Amazonian archetype offers a timeless representation of women challenging authority and advocating for their own freedom. Whether in the form of popular culture, such as Wonder Woman, or in real-world protests and movements, the spirit of the Amazon lives on in those who stand up to oppression, demanding equal treatment, respect, and opportunity. The Amazons represent more than just the ability to wield weapons. They represent the courage to stand up against injustice and the resilience to persist in the face of adversity. The myth of the Amazons, once confined to the ancient world, has permeated modern feminism, reinforcing the idea that women, empowered by their independence and unity, can defy the limitations imposed upon them by society. Their legacy, alive in every act of resistance, every assertion of independence, and every step toward gender equality, remains a powerful symbol in the ongoing fight for women's rights. The archetype of the feminine warrior has endured throughout history, appearing not only in the myths of the Amazons, but also in numerous cultures across the globe. The idea of a woman who wields strength, both physical and emotional, has captivated humanity for centuries. These warrior figures embody the power of women to assert control over their own lives, fight for justice, and challenge societal boundaries. Whether rooted in mythology, folklore, or history, the feminine warrior represents an ideal of courage, resilience, and determination. The Amazonian women are among the most celebrated of these figures, but the warrior spirit has manifested in many forms across different cultures. In the Amazonian myth, the warrior women are often depicted as fierce defenders of their lands, equipped with weapons and unwavering in their commitment to their way of life. These women embodied not just physical strength but emotional fortitude, an unyielding will to protect their values, their people, and their autonomy. This duality of strength, physical and emotional, has long been associated with empowering women, both in myth and in real life. The feminine warrior is not merely a symbol of brute force, but a representation of the inner strength that women possess, the ability to face adversity, to resist oppression, and to fight for what they believe in. The archetype of the feminine warrior has evolved over time, particularly in contemporary society. As women continue to break down barriers in politics, business, and culture, the warrior spirit becomes less about battlefields and more about standing up to injustice and inequality. The modern-day warrior woman takes on many forms. She is the activist, the entrepreneur, the athlete, the mother, the leader, each facing challenges unique to her situation, but drawing from the same well of inner strength that defined the warriors of old. The emotional and physical resilience that these women embody today is no less powerful than the Amazonian mythological figures, yet it is expressed in new ways, informed by the complexities of modern life. The feminine warrior spirit today finds its strength not just in the ability to fight, but in the capacity to navigate the challenges of a changing world. Whether confronting societal expectations, gender inequality, or personal struggles, women continue to embrace the warrior ethos, adapting it to their circumstances. The fight is no longer only physical, but intellectual, emotional, and social. The same courage and resolve that characterized the Amazonian women's resistance to external forces can now be seen in women's continued struggle for equality, justice, and personal agency. In a world where gender roles are continually being challenged, the feminine warrior is not an outdated relic of myth. She is an active and evolving figure, representing the strength, resilience, and empowerment that women continue to embody. The Amazonian warrior spirit endures because it is not confined to the past, but woven into the fabric of women's lives today. It is a testament to the enduring power of women to fight for themselves, for each other, and for the world they want to create. Throughout history, women have taken on roles as military leaders and generals, often defying the gender norms of their times and proving their mettle on the battlefield. The role of the female general, though historically rare, has been marked by a series of extraordinary women who stood at the helm of armies and empires, changing the course of wars and shaping history. These women, like the Amazonian warriors of myth, commanded respect not only for their strategic genius, but also for their courage and resilience in a world that often excluded them from positions of power. One of the most prominent examples of a female military leader is Joan of Arc, who led French forces to several important victories during the 100 Years' War. Despite her youth and the opposition she faced as a woman in a deeply patriarchal society, Joan's leadership and tactical brilliance were undeniable. Her role in the liberation of Orleans and the eventual coronation of Charles VII as King of France solidified her place in history. Joan of Arc's rise to prominence mirrored the Amazonian archetype, where a woman's courage and unwavering sense of purpose allowed her to lead men into battle and change the course of history. Another remarkable female general is Queen Boudicca of the Iceni tribe in Britain. When her people were oppressed by the Romans, Boudicca led a revolt that saw the destruction of several Roman settlements, including Londinium, modern-day London. Like the Amazons, Boudicca embodied the warrior spirit, uniting her people against a powerful enemy and demonstrating that women were capable of leading armies with passion and ferocity. Her story, much like that of the Amazonian warriors, is one of resistance, defiance, and the indomitable strength of a woman fighting for her people and her land. In more recent history, women such as Indira Gandhi, the first female Prime Minister of India, though not a military leader in the traditional sense, demonstrated leadership on a global scale that had profound political and military implications. Her decision to engage in the 1971 war with Pakistan and her role in directing the Indian military showcased her capability as a leader in times of crisis. While not a general in the conventional sense, her strategic influence over military actions mirrors the leadership qualities associated with the Amazonian model. The female generals of history often found themselves in the position of navigating male-dominated systems while simultaneously proving their abilities to lead effectively. The parallels with the Amazonian model of leadership are clear. These women commanded armies, made strategic decisions, and fought with an unyielding determination. Just as the Amazons were revered for their prowess on the battlefield and their ability to unite women under a banner of strength and purpose, female generals have left an indelible mark on the pages of history, showing the world that leadership, courage, and strength are not confined by gender. In many ways, these women, much like the Amazons of myth, have defied societal expectations and broken down barriers, changing the course of wars and the trajectory of nations. Their stories remain as a testament to the power of female leadership and the undeniable truth that women, like their mythic predecessors, have always had the capacity to shape the world around them with strength, wisdom, and resolve. In today's world, the spirit of the Amazonian warrior is alive and well, channeled through modern women who embody strength, resilience, and determination in various fields. These women, much like the Amazonian warriors of myth, defy conventional gender roles and expectations, proving that leadership, courage, and physical prowess are not limited by societal constraints. From politics to sports, modern-day Amazons continue to break barriers, challenge norms, and inspire future generations. In the political sphere, women like Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany, and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the first female president of Liberia, have demonstrated the kind of leadership and resolve that would make any Amazon proud. Merkel's steady hand in navigating Germany through various crises and Johnson Sirleaf's leadership in rebuilding Liberia after civil war are examples of women who have wielded power in environments traditionally dominated by men. These women may not lead armies on the battlefield, but their influence is no less significant, shaping the course of history with their strategic decisions and vision for a better future. In the realm of sports, the Amazonian spirit is alive in athletes who push the limits of human endurance, strength, and skill. Women like Serena Williams, who has dominated tennis for over 2 decades, and Ronda Rousey, a pioneer in women's mixed martial arts, represent the modern-day embodiment of the Amazonian warrior. These athletes have not only broken records, but have also shattered the barriers that once confined women to the sidelines in sports. Their dedication, relentless work ethic, and ability to face and overcome challenges head-on reflect the very qualities of the Amazonian warriors, uncompromising strength and the will to fight for success. The rise of women in the military and martial arts is another, a testament to the continuing relevance of the Amazonian spirit. Women like General Laurie Robinson, the first female officer to lead a major unified combatant command in the U.S. military, and former Marine Corps Sergeant Major Tracy L. DeMarinis, have proven that women can excel in traditionally male-dominated fields, leading troops, making critical decisions, and earning the respect of their peers. In the world of martial arts, women like Valentina Shevchenko, a UFC fighter, and Gina Carano, a former mixed martial artist and actress, have paved the way for future generations of female fighters who are now competing at the highest levels, standing as formidable opponents in a male-dominated sport. These modern-day Amazons are not just excelling in their fields, they are also role models who challenge societal expectations and inspire other women to follow in their footsteps. They show the world that the qualities of the Amazonian warrior, strength, independence, and courage, are not just relics of ancient myths, but living traits that can be found in women who fight for equality, freedom, and their place in a world that continues to evolve. Through their determination, they are redefining what it means to be a woman in today's world, and showing that the Amazonian spirit, far from being a thing of the past, is a force that continues to shape the future. In the mythology of the Amazons, the connection to nature is not just a backdrop, but an integral part of their identity and way of life. The Amazonian women were not only fierce warriors, but also stewards of the land they called home. Their deep respect for nature, its rhythms, and its cycles is woven throughout their culture and practices, underscoring a symbiotic relationship with the environment. The mythological Amazonian society was one where the natural world was revered, protected, and intertwined with daily life, with women playing a central role in maintaining the balance between humanity and the earth. In many ancient depictions, the Amazons are shown living in harmony with their surroundings. Their territories, often described as lush, fertile, and rich with natural resources, were not just battlegrounds, but sanctuaries of biodiversity and sustainability. The forests, rivers, and mountains were as much a part of their identity as their skills in combat. The goddess Artemis, whom many Amazons revered, was the protector of nature, hunting, and wild spaces. She embodied the values of respect for the natural world, a theme that resonated deeply with the Amazonian warriors. To the Amazons, Nature was not something to be conquered, but to be respected, nurtured, and protected, just as they protected their communities. This connection to nature extended beyond mythology into their everyday practices. Amazonian warriors were often portrayed as adept hunters and gatherers, using the land's resources in sustainable ways. They did not take more than what was needed, living in a balanced and respectful relationship with the ecosystems around them. The forests that provided shelter, the rivers that provided sustenance, and the animals that shared the land were all seen as sacred. The role of women as guardians of this harmony reflected a feminist lens on environmental stewardship, where women were the primary caretakers of both human and environmental health. In many cultures, women have historically been the ones to manage resources, pass down knowledge about sustainable farming, and tend to the health of the community. In Amazonian society, this role was magnified, making the women not only warriors, but the moral and ecological compass of their civilization. Today, as the world grapples with environmental crises like deforestation, climate change, and the destruction of biodiversity, the Amazonian example offers valuable lessons. Feminist perspectives on environmentalism often emphasize the interconnectedness of social justice and environmental stewardship. Women, particularly those in marginalized communities, are disproportionately affected by environmental degradation. Yet, they are also at the forefront of efforts to combat these challenges, using their unique position as caretakers of the earth to advocate for sustainability, justice, and the protection of resources for future generations. In modern times, the spirit of the Amazonian women lives on through environmental activists, many of whom are women who challenge industrial exploitation and fight for the preservation of nature. Their advocacy for the planet mirrors the ancient Amazonian commitment to living in harmony with the earth. Just as the Amazons fought for their land and way of life, contemporary feminist environmentalists fight to protect the natural world, ensuring that future generations can thrive in a healthy, sustainable environment. The Amazonian legacy, in this sense, is one of profound environmental stewardship, showing us that the fight for equality and the fight for nature's preservation are deeply intertwined. In recent years, there has been a remarkable resurgence of interest in the history, culture, and ideals of the Amazons, fueled by a growing global movement that seeks to rediscover and reclaim ancient narratives of strength, independence, and resistance. The Amazonian women, once relegated to myth and legend, are now being celebrated as symbols of empowerment, justice, and equality. As modern society grapples with ongoing struggles for gender equality, social justice, and environmental preservation, the ideals embodied by the Amazons offer a powerful framework for those striving to reshape the world. The allure of the Amazonian archetype lies in its defiance of traditional gender roles. The Amazonian women, as warriors, leaders, and protectors of their land, defied the constraints placed on them by patriarchal societies. They stood as an enduring symbol of autonomy, courage, and strength, qualities that continue to resonate with contemporary movements, advocating for women's rights and broader social equality. With their fierce independence and commitment to justice, the Amazons are being reimagined as trailblazers who stood up against oppression, not just in battle, but in the way they lived their lives and governed their communities. In today's world, the Amazonian return is evident in various forms, from the increasing visibility of women in leadership positions to the rise of women warriors in martial arts, sports, and activism. Women worldwide are embracing the Amazonian ideals of self-determination, strength, and the refusal to be constrained by societal expectations. Whether it's through social media movements, literature, or activism, the Amazon has become a powerful figure in the collective imagination, inspiring women to fight for their rights, challenge the status quo, and assert their place in a world that often seeks to marginalize them. This resurgence is also evident in the increasing prominence of Amazonian archetypes in popular culture. Films, books, and comics continue to explore and reframe the stories of warrior women. The most iconic of these figures, Wonder Woman, has become a cultural touchstone, not just as a superhero, but as a symbol of female strength, justice, and the ongoing battle for equality. In her portrayal, we see a direct line drawn between the Amazonian legacy and modern-day struggles for justice, illustrating how the myth of the Amazons transcends time and remains relevant in contemporary society. As the world faces issues of systemic inequality, climate change, and social unrest, the Amazonian return symbolizes the need for new models of leadership, models that embrace the warrior spirit, advocate for justice, and protect the earth and its resources. The Amazonian archetype is being embraced not as a relic of the past, but as a guide for the future, one that calls for fierce, unyielding action in the face of adversity. As this resurgence continues, the Amazon story will remain an enduring source of inspiration for all those who believe in the power of resistance, justice, and equality. Amazonian society, though shrouded in myth and legend, is often portrayed as a culture deeply rooted in principles of wisdom, balance, and unity. Their way of life was not just about physical strength and battle prowess, but also about the cultivation of inner strength, leadership, and harmony with the world around them. The teachings of the Amazons, though not written down in the way ancient philosophies were, have endured through the stories of their valor and the values they embodied, values that resonate deeply even in today's world. At the heart of Amazonian wisdom was the understanding that true strength was not only derived from the physical, but from the mind and spirit. Leadership within their society was not based on dominance or power for the sake of control, but on a balance between strength and compassion. The Amazonian queen, or warrior, was expected to lead by example, showing that power was best exercised with responsibility and respect for all. This philosophy emphasized that leadership came with the duty of maintaining peace, ensuring the welfare of the tribe, and fighting only for justice. The Amazons viewed leadership as a collective responsibility, not a singular pursuit of glory, and their leaders were often chosen based on their ability to unify rather than divide. Strength, too, was more than just the ability to fight. It was about endurance, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the value of their community and its way of life. This was reflected in their training methods, which sought not only to hone the body, but to sharpen the mind and spirit. An Amazon warrior was taught to stay calm under pressure, to be resourceful in the face of adversity, and to remain true to the cause, even in the darkest of times. The Amazonian warrior's strength was also grounded in the belief that true power came from within, from knowing oneself and one's purpose, rather than from external validation. Balance was another central tenet of Amazonian philosophy. The Amazons understood that life required equilibrium between aggression and peace, strength and compassion, independence and unity. They lived in harmony with nature and their surroundings, understanding that the land, like their people, needed to be nurtured and respected. This balance was reflected in their way of governing and in the way they fought. They did not seek endless conquest, but fought when necessary to defend their way of life or their values. Their concept of justice was one that sought to restore balance rather than simply punish wrongdoers. In today's world, where leadership often feels driven by power struggles and divisions, the Amazonian teachings offer a much-needed reminder of what true leadership and strength entail. Their wisdom teaches that real power is rooted in balance, that true leadership is about service to others, and that strength comes not just from the body, but from resilience of mind and spirit. As society grapples with its own struggles for equality, justice, and peace, the lessons of the Amazons provide a guiding light, one that calls for strength in unity, wisdom in leadership, and the courage to act when faced with adversity. In Amazonian society, The role of women went beyond warriors and leaders. They were also revered as healers, wise women who understood the delicate balance between the physical and spiritual realms. These women, often skilled in herbalism, medicine, and spiritual healing, were crucial to the survival and well-being of their communities. Their knowledge was passed down through generations, not only as a means of maintaining physical health, but as a way to preserve the very spirit of the Amazonian way of life. Amazonian healers were experts in the use of plants, roots, and herbs found in the rich and diverse landscapes they inhabited. From the dense forests to the flowing rivers, the natural world was a vast pharmacy, and the healers knew how to harness its power. Plants were used to create potions, teas, salves, and poultices to treat everything from common ailments to more severe injuries sustained in battle. Their deep connection with nature gave them an intuitive understanding of the medicinal properties of various plants. This knowledge was not only scientific, but also spiritual, as the healers understood that the physical body and the spirit were intertwined. Healing was as much about restoring the balance of one's energy and emotions as it was about treating the body. In addition to their expertise in herbal medicine, Amazonian women were skilled in rituals that helped to heal the soul. Spiritual healing was an integral part of their practice, with ceremonies often taking place under the watchful eyes of nature's elements. These rituals were designed to restore balance to the spirit, cleanse negative energies, and bring harmony to the individual and the community. The healers used chants, sacred dances, and meditative practices to invoke the protection and guidance of the gods, calling on deities like Artemis and other local spirits for aid. These spiritual practices reinforced the Amazonian belief that health was a holistic concept, requiring balance between mind, body, and spirit. The legacy of Amazonian healing practices has survived, albeit in altered forms, through centuries of cultural transformation. While much of their ancient wisdom was lost due to the encroachment of foreign powers and the decline of Amazonian traditions, many of the plants and healing techniques used by these early healers can still be found in modern herbalism and natural medicine. In some cultures, particularly those in the rainforests and remote villages, the influence of Amazonian healing practices continues. The knowledge of medicinal plants, passed down through generations, still serves as the foundation for healing in many indigenous communities. Furthermore, modern-day practitioners of alternative medicine and spiritual healing draw inspiration from the Amazonian understanding of the interconnectedness of life, body, and spirit. The power of Amazonian healers is a reminder that the strength of a society does not solely lie in its warriors, but in its capacity to nurture and care for its people. This wisdom, which recognizes the delicate balance between the physical and the spiritual, remains a testament to the profound connection these women had with the natural world, and their enduring legacy continues to inspire those seeking healing in both the body and the soul. The myth of the Amazon warrior, once confined to ancient stories and legends, has experienced a powerful resurgence in modern times, transformed into a symbol of empowerment for women across the world. Today, women are embracing the spirit of the Amazonian warrior, drawing strength from the bold, fearless figures of history to navigate and challenge the contemporary world. This modern rebirth of the Amazon is not just about reclaiming ancient tales, but redefining what it means to be a warrior in today's society. Women have found new ways to reinterpret the Amazon myth, turning it into a symbol of independence, resilience, and strength. From athletes to activists, the warrior spirit is alive and well in women who have chosen to face their battles head-on, whether they are fighting for gender equality, pursuing careers in male-dominated fields, or breaking through societal barriers. The idea of the Amazon as a powerful, self-sufficient, and unapologetic woman is being woven into the fabric of contemporary feminism, creating a narrative that champions female autonomy and the ability to fight for one's rights, just as the Amazons did for theirs. A significant aspect of this rebirth has been the resurgence of martial arts traditions among women. Female fighters, from those practicing traditional combat disciplines to mixed martial arts champions, are embodying the Amazonian ideals of strength and discipline. These women are reclaiming physical prowess that was once the domain of men, proving that power and grace are not mutually exclusive. Whether in the ring or on the mat, these modern-day warrior women are pushing their bodies to the limit, developing mental toughness and fighting spirit that echo the battles of their ancient predecessors. The discipline, endurance, and determination required in martial arts resonate deeply with the Amazonian archetype, turning combat into an expression of empowerment rather than violence. This warrior ethos has also woven itself into the broader fabric of contemporary feminist movements. As society increasingly acknowledges the importance of physical and emotional strength, the Amazonian model offers an empowering vision for women striving for equality. In a world still struggling with gender disparity, the Amazonian figure serves as a metaphor for breaking free from constraints, a symbol that encourages women to stand tall, fight for their place, and never back down from their beliefs. The Amazon warrior is no longer just an ancient myth. She is a beacon of inspiration for modern women, demanding respect, autonomy, and the space to be their authentic selves. The resurgence of the Amazonian warrior in today's world represents a larger cultural shift, one where women are reclaiming power on their own terms. It is about rewriting the narrative of female strength, taking it from the margins of myth and placing it front and center in the struggle for justice, equality, and self-determination. The spirit of the Amazons, embodied in modern-day warriors, continues to inspire generations, ensuring that their legacy of strength and resilience endures. The legacy of the Amazonian queens is one of powerful leadership, resilience, and an unyielding sense of autonomy. These women shape their societies with courage, wisdom, and the belief that leadership should not be defined by gender, but by strength of character and vision. Their legacy transcends time, influencing the way we view leadership today, particularly through the lens of Amazonian wisdom, where leadership is about unity, respect, and an unwavering commitment to one's people. The Amazonian queens were not just figures of war, but rulers who embodied a delicate balance between strength and compassion. They led their tribes with a clear sense of purpose, often facing overwhelming odds. Whether it was Penthesilea, whose courage and sacrifice in battle became legendary, or Hippolyta, whose leadership brought stability and prosperity to her people, these queens understood that true leadership lies in the ability to inspire, protect, and uplift. Their rule was never about dominance for the sake of power, but about ensuring the survival and flourishing of their people. What stands out in the Amazonian model of leadership is its refusal to conform to traditional norms. In a world that often defined rulers by their physical prowess, Amazonian queens redefined leadership. They ruled not only with physical strength, but with strategic intelligence, emotional intelligence, and a deep connection to the values of their societies. Leadership was not a privilege, but a responsibility, one that required sacrifice, selflessness, and the ability to unite people under a common cause. This wisdom, passed down through generations, continues to inspire and reshape what leadership means for women today. In modern times, there are countless women who carry the torch of Amazonian heritage. From heads of state to business leaders, from activists fighting for justice to athletes breaking barriers, the legacy of Amazonian queens is alive and well. These women are not simply following in the footsteps of their ancestors. They are redefining leadership in their own right, often battling against the same societal constraints that Amazonian queens once did. They understand that leadership is not about seeking approval or conforming to traditional expectations. It is about paving the way for others, creating space for voices that have long been silenced, and challenging the status quo to create a more just world. The women who carry the torch of Amazonian heritage today are warriors in their own right. They are warriors of change, of progress, and of self-discovery. They understand that leadership comes in many forms and can be exercised in every arena of life. Whether in politics, the arts, science, or social justice, these women embrace the Amazonian legacy, refusing to be limited by gender and wielding their power in ways that inspire future generations. Just as the Amazonian queens once stood as symbols of strength, leadership, and wisdom, the women of today continue to honor and build upon their legacy, ushering in a new era of leadership for all. The Amazon warrior spirit has left an indelible mark on modern political movements, infusing them with a sense of resilience, strength, and unrelenting determination. The ideals of the Amazons, uncompromising in their pursuit of autonomy, justice, and equality, have inspired countless women around the world to take on leadership roles, reshaping the way governance is understood and practiced. The Amazonian legacy transcends time and geography, influencing contemporary politics in profound ways, as women step into positions of power and challenge the status quo with unwavering resolve. The spirit of Amazonian queens is embodied in the leadership of women who have broken down barriers, defied expectations, and fought against systems of oppression to lead with courage and conviction. Figures like Jacinda Ardern, who served as the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and Angela Merkel, the longtime Chancellor of Germany, exemplify the blend of strength, compassion, and intelligence that is reminiscent of the great Amazonian rulers. These leaders, though different in their political approaches and contexts, share common threads with the legendary queens, leading not only with strategic acumen, but with a focus on unity, compassion, and the well-being of their people. They reflect the Amazonian ideals of a leadership that goes beyond mere power, focusing instead on service, responsibility, and the strength to effect meaningful change. The Amazonian legacy is not limited to political figures alone, but extends to movements that champion women's rights, environmental sustainability, and social justice. Activists, grassroots organizers, and policymakers who fight for gender equality and the protection of marginalized communities echo the strength of Amazon warriors. The Amazonian archetype provides a model of fierce independence and solidarity, one that empowers women across the globe to challenge patriarchal structures and demand a seat at the table. Whether fighting for reproductive rights, racial justice, or climate action, these movements are grounded in the core principles of Amazonian resistance and unity. In reshaping the world of governance, the Amazonian influence is clear in the growing number of women who are rising to political prominence. From mayors and governors to international diplomats and UN officials, women are wielding power and shaping policies that directly address issues of equity, social justice, and human rights. The Amazonian influence brings a refreshing perspective to politics, one that values collaboration, inclusivity, and the importance of listening to all voices, especially those traditionally marginalized. Just as Amazonian queens led with the aim of protecting their people and promoting justice, modern female political leaders are doing the same, though their battles may take different forms. In this new era, the Amazonian legacy is alive in the halls of government and within the broader political movements shaping our world. The warrior women of today continue to honor the past, while forging ahead with fierce determination and a clear vision of the future. As the Amazonian spirit reverberates through the political landscape, it transforms governance into something more equitable, just, and compassionate, a reflection of the strength, resilience, and leadership once embodied by the queens of the ancient Amazons. Over time, the stories of the Amazons have shifted from the realm of myth to something resembling history. The line between fact and fiction has blurred, with the tales of these formidable women warriors evolving over centuries, passed down through oral traditions, and captured in ancient texts. What began as legends fueled by the imaginations of storytellers has grown into an enduring symbol of female power, strength, and autonomy. Yet, behind the myths, there lies a deeper truth about the Amazons, one that speaks to the real and complex lives of women who defied conventional gender roles in ancient societies. In the earliest accounts, the Amazons were portrayed as a fierce, isolated tribe of warrior women, often depicted as living on the fringes of the known world, beyond the reach of mainstream civilization. Greek poets like Herodotus and Homer introduced these stories, weaving them into the tapestry of their own cultural myths. The Amazons were positioned as both adversaries and allies of famous Greek heroes, such as Heracles and Theseus, their encounters symbolic of the tensions between the Greek ideal of a patriarchal society and the powerful independence of women. These myths gave the Amazons a place in the collective consciousness of ancient Greece and beyond, transforming them into legendary figures whose stories were as much about the imagination as about historical fact. But as with many ancient myths, the line between legend and history became increasingly difficult to distinguish. While the Amazons were once thought to be entirely fictional, archaeological discoveries and the accounts of historians suggest that they were based on real women who participated in warfare and held significant roles in their societies. Ancient depictions, such as those found on Greek pottery and in Persian and Scythian records, depict women wielding weapons and engaged in combat, signaling that these depictions may have been more than mere fantasy. The possibility that such women actually existed in various cultures, such as the Scythians, whose women fought alongside men, points to a more complex reality. These were not simply mythical creatures, but real women who may have inspired the legends, their actions immortalized in stories passed down through generations. The blending of fact and fiction has allowed the legacy of the Amazons to endure, creating a dynamic narrative that still holds significance today. Myths have a way of preserving history, whether accurately or not, by embedding the values of a society within them. In this case, the Amazonian legend became a vessel for cultural ideals about women's roles in combat, leadership, and society. These stories spoke to a world that both feared and revered powerful women, and as such, the truth behind the legend is wrapped in layers of both historical reality and cultural interpretation. Unveiling the truth behind the Amazonian legend requires peeling back these layers, understanding the historical context in which these women lived, and acknowledging the role they played in shaping the warrior archetype. While the Amazons may have been exaggerated in the telling of their story, the essential truth remains. Women were warriors, leaders, and forces to be reckoned with, and their legacies continue to resonate in both the myths and histories of cultures around the world. As we look toward the future, the legacy of the Amazonian warrior is poised to inspire new generations of women worldwide. The ideals of strength, independence, resilience, and leadership, once embodied by these fierce female warriors of ancient myth, hold the potential to resonate more deeply than ever before. In a world where gender roles are continually being redefined, the Amazonian archetype offers a powerful model for women striving to break free from societal constraints and assert their rightful place in every arena, be it politics, sports, business, or beyond. In a future where the Amazonian spirit is embraced, women will no longer be confined to outdated stereotypes or limited by preconceived notions of what they can achieve. The Amazonian warrior is a symbol of personal empowerment and collective unity, where physical strength is matched by intellectual prowess, and where leadership is both a personal and a shared responsibility. The future, in this vision, is one where women wield not just physical weapons, but the tools of influence, innovation, and change, much as the Amazonian queens once commanded both the battlefield and their societies. The myth of the Amazon can serve as a guiding light for generations to come. It offers a rich tapestry of narratives about women taking charge, not just in moments of conflict, but in times of peace, governance, and community building. In these stories, women do not simply react to the world around them, they shape it, just as the Amazons were believed to shape their own destinies and communities. The modern interpretation of the Amazonian warrior can inspire young women to embrace their power, not only as individuals, but as part of a greater movement for justice, equality, and self-determination. Reviving Amazonian values in today's world offers a profound opportunity. It challenges contemporary ideas about femininity, placing strength, autonomy, and leadership at the core of what it means to be a woman. This revitalization doesn't mean returning to an ancient past, but rather taking the enduring wisdom of the Amazons and applying it to today's global struggles, whether in fighting for gender equality, environmental justice, or political empowerment. These values of independence and resilience can be the foundation upon which a new world order is built, one where women lead not out of necessity or compromise, but from a position of equal authority and respect. As the world continues to evolve, the myth of the Amazon will remain as relevant as ever, offering both a mirror to reflect on our progress and a beacon to guide us forward. The future of the Amazon is a future where women are unashamedly bold, unapologetically strong, and unyielding in their pursuit of equality. It is a future where the ideals of the Amazonian warrior become not just stories told through the ages, but the very essence of the women who will shape the world to come. The power of stories and myths to shape our perceptions is undeniable, and the legend of the Amazons stands as a testament to this profound influence. From the earliest depictions in ancient texts to the modern retellings in books, movies, and popular culture, the Amazonian myth has transcended its origins to become a universal symbol of female strength and resilience. The Amazons, once imagined as fierce warrior women living on the fringes of known civilization, have come to embody a much more universal ideal, one that continues to resonate deeply with audiences around the world. Stories like these hold the power to challenge and redefine societal norms, pushing boundaries and opening new pathways for what is possible. The legend of the Amazons is more than just a tale of warriors. It is a reflection of the human desire to see ourselves in the stories we tell. It is a yearning for agency and empowerment, especially for those who have been historically marginalized or silenced. In the Amazonian myth, women are not passive figures. They are warriors, leaders, and visionaries, shaping their own destinies and communities. This portrayal challenges conventional ideas of femininity and invites us to reconsider the roles that women can play in both our personal lives and in broader society. As these stories continue to inspire future generations, they become part of the collective consciousness, influencing how young women see themselves and their potential. The legacy of the Amazons is a legacy of defiance against oppression, of carving out a place for women in a world that has often denied them equality and recognition. By sharing these stories, whether through literature, films, or oral traditions, we ensure that the ideals of courage, independence, and strength continue to inspire those who come after us. The Amazons are not just historical figures or fictional characters. They are a symbol of possibility, a reminder that women can rise above adversity and shape the course of history. The importance of storytelling in preserving the memory of powerful women cannot be overstated. These narratives allow us to honor the contributions of women, not just in battle, but in every facet of life, from governance to culture, from leadership to love. The Amazons, through their enduring presence in myth, offer a space for women to be seen in their full complexity and power. They are reminders that the story of women's strength is not just a myth, but a legacy waiting to be written and retold in every generation. In a world that is continually evolving, the legend of the Amazons remains relevant, reminding us of the power of myth to shape our perceptions and our future. The stories of the Amazons will continue to inspire and empower, allowing women to find their place in the narrative of history and to leave their own mark for generations to come. Through storytelling, the spirit of the Amazons endures alive in every woman who dares to be bold, to challenge the status quo, and to dream of a world where strength and resilience are not just celebrated but expected. The legacy of the Amazons, once relegated to the realms of myth and legend, continues to echo in the present day, vibrant and alive in ways that few could have imagined. The warrior women of ancient times, brave, fierce, and unyielding, have transcended their mythical origins, becoming timeless symbols of strength, autonomy, and resilience. Their influence, once confined to the stories of antiquity, now permeates every corner of modern life, inspiring countless women across the world to challenge limitations, break barriers, and take their rightful place in the world as leaders, warriors, and changemakers. In the face of adversity, the Amazons embody the spirit of defiance, an unwillingness to accept the status quo, and a deep commitment to standing up for one's beliefs and one's people. The power of their stories lies not only in the battles they fought or the territories they conquered, but in their refusal to be defined by the norms of the societies they encountered. The Amazons were not passive figures. They were the architects of their own fate, reshaping the world around them according to their values of courage, unity, and justice. These women were not merely warriors in battle, they were protectors, leaders, and fierce advocates for their communities. Their warrior spirit is one that lives on in every woman who dares to challenge the structures that seek to limit her potential. Today, the Amazonian legacy is more relevant than ever. Women across the globe continue to draw strength from the examples set by these legendary figures, finding inspiration in their unyielding fight for freedom and equality. Whether it is in the boardrooms, on the athletic fields, or in the halls of government, the spirit of the Amazon reverberates. Women are rising to positions of power and influence, carving out spaces for themselves in fields that have long been dominated by men. They are warriors in their own right, whether they are fighting for political change, social justice, or simply the right to be heard. The Amazonian archetype continues to inspire these modern warriors, reminding them that they are part of a long line of women who have dared to defy the odds and rewrite history. The Amazon myth, then, is not just a story from the past. It is a living, breathing testament to the power of women to change the world. It is a reminder that each woman has within her the strength to rise above the challenges that face her and to carve out a path of her own. The Amazons may have been warriors of the ancient world, but their legacy is firmly rooted in the present, alive in every woman who stands tall, who leads, who fights for what she believes in. As we reflect on the profound impact of the Amazons, we see that their legacy is not only one of the past, but also one that continues to shape the future. The Amazon awakens not only in the pages of myth, but in the hearts of women everywhere, and her spirit will endure as long as there are women who refuse to be anything less than extraordinary.